Chapter 452. It'll be fine. Cousin, go back. When Shichi raised his eyes again and looked at Duke Xing's mansion. Third cousin, I'm afraid. We are so close to each other. What if the fire burns here? Gu Shishu said as she wiped her tears pitifully and was about to walk up the rockery. There was no one around and it was dark. If she panicked, she could throw herself into her third cousin's arms. It would be better if someone saw it. Third cousin would have to marry her. Even if no one saw it, it didn't matter. At this time, third cousin should be more concerned about her. Cousin, you don't have to come up. Eldest brother and second brother will come in a while. You go back to have a rest first. When Shichi said lightly without looking at her. Gu Shishu stopped. Will second cousin also come? Second cousin had always been jealous. If he saw her standing next to third cousin, he would definitely doubt her. At that time, not only would he have another excuse, but it would also be easy to ruin their plan. Thinking of this, Gu Shishu felt that it was better for her to leave first. Third cousin, be careful. I'll go back first. If something bad happens, I hope you can inform me immediately. Inform me immediately. Gu Shishu looked up at Wen Shichi with a frightened look on her face. This was Wen Shichi's courtyard. She really couldn't stay here for long. Okay, you go back first and sleep peacefully. It'll be fine. Wen Shichi said gently. Third cousin, when eldest cousin and second cousin come later, can you not tell them that I came here because I was afraid? They will laugh at me. Gu Shishu was bashful and said with a slightly red face. When Shichi lowered his eyes and looked at Gu Shishu's face. After a long while, he nodded slightly and said, okay. Was she afraid that her second brother would think too much, or was she afraid of exposing her thoughts in front of her second brother? The corners of his lips curled up silently. In the darkness, the corners of his mouth twitched mockingly. It was really hard on her. She wanted to get everything she wanted from both sides. Before he had officially agreed to her, she had been holding on to his second brother tightly for future use. Seeing that when Shichi agreed, Gu Shishu breathed a sigh of relief, bowed sideways to Wen Shichi, and then left gracefully with a servant girl. She walked very fast and took a shortcut after leaving the courtyard. It was an extremely difficult shortcut. Along the way, there were a lot of flowers and plants. Although they were not in full bloom, they could not be seen clearly in the dark and would inevitably damage her clothes. However, Gu Shishu's clothes were intact just now. When he came here, he was so scared and panicked, but he didn't take the difficult shortcut. When he went back, he didn't need to panic anymore, but he hurriedly took the shortcut. Was he afraid that second brother would see him? It could be seen that the relationship between Gu Shishu and his second brother was unusual. In other words, she and her second brother might have already pledged their undying love to each other and would not marry anyone else. But even so, he still came to pull him. He was really shameless. He raised his head again, looked at the delicate figure in Duke Xing's mansion, and frowned. Why did he feel that Xiao Wanru seemed to know him? She was very familiar with the affairs in his mansion and even knew that he was in the dark. Why was she so interested in him? A trace of disgust flashed across his eyes. He really didn't like people who were very familiar with him, but he couldn't find any clues about them. A young woman. Even though Xiao Wanru reminded him to pay attention to his second brother and cousin sister, how could she know that? Qin Huayong had come here before and wanted to marry into his family. So this fifth Miss Xiao, who was still the second Miss Qin at that time, was investigating him. As a young and famous person, the feeling of being seen through and not knowing anything was not good. A thought flashed through her mind inexplicably. Xiao Wanru was now the fifth Miss of Duke Xing's mansion, and she could be regarded as a match for her. She just didn't know what her mother would think. Their identities were the same, but she was still an orphan girl without parents after all. He did not know where his thoughts had wandered. Although his eyes were looking at the large fire field, his thoughts were already foggy. When a gust of cold wind blew, he suddenly came to his senses. His expression immediately became very ugly. At that moment, he had actually been thinking about this. This made him very uncomfortable. He was grateful to Xiao Wanru, but he didn't want to have too much to do with her. He always felt that she knew too much about him. He moved his eyes and looked at Xiao Wanru again. This time, he saw Xiao Wanru turn her head. He didn't know if Xiao Wanru also saw him, but she actually smiled at him. He frowned more and more. Was Xiao Wanru plotting against him? This feeling became more and more uncomfortable, as if a person he had trusted had betrayed him. Qin Wanru actually didn't see Wen Shiqi. She didn't even know that the deputy prime minister's mansion was next door. The reason why she smiled was actually a forced smile. Because she saw Rui, and great elder princess who came in a hurry. Seeing Rui, and great elder princess's face full of panic, Rui, and great elder princess, who had always been majestic, had a trace of palpitating fragility on her face. She tried hard to squeeze a smile and wanted to comfort Rui, and great elder princess. Zhuozhuo, are you okay? Rui, and great elder princess came after hearing the news. She grabbed Xiao Wanru and looked her up and down hard, for fear that she was slightly injured. Grandma, I'm fine. I'm really fine. Xiao Wanru's eyes turned red. She was really moved. She had been here for a while. No matter Madam of Duke Xing or Duke Xing, the first thing they did after coming here was to pay attention to this courtyard. No one came to ask her if she was frightened or injured. Old Madam, who lived in the backyard, sent someone to ask about this courtyard. She also asked someone to put out the fire quickly and protect this courtyard and the things in it. As for Xiao Wanru, she didn't ask about her at all. Duke Xing's mansion really neglected her completely. It was even worse than a courtyard given to the first young master. Now seeing her grandma's concern, she felt aggrieved and threw herself into Rui, and great elder princess's arms and cried. Rui, and great elder princess hurriedly hugged her. Feeling the petite body in her arms was soft and crying, Rui, and great elder princess felt distressed. She had always been strong and never cried in front of others. Every time she appeared in front of others, she would straighten her back. But at this moment, she couldn't help crying. Someone, call Duke Xing here. Rui, and great elder princess said angrily. Now it was a mess. They could hear Duke Xing's voice, but they couldn't see him. Several old maids answered and squeezed out. After a while, they invited Duke Xing over. Duke Xing looked a little embarrassed. His robe was stained with some black marks, and there was a burnt place on his cuff. The crown on his head was also askew. His voice was a little hoarse than usual, which was caused by shouting when he directed people to put out the fire just now. Greetings, great elder princess. Duke Xing stepped forward and saluted. What the hell is going on? Why didn't you burn other places but the place where Zhuozhuo lives? Could it be that someone wants to burn Zhuozhuo to death? I told you to let Zhuozhuo go with me. Look at your Duke Xing's mansion. It's not safe to live in it. Rui, and great elder princess was not polite and immediately rebuked him sternly. Her words almost implied that Duke Xing's mansion wanted to murder Xiao Wanru. Duke Xing's eyebrows twitched fiercely a few times. Looking at everything in front of him, he almost couldn't control his temper, which had always been a good person. But he also knew that it was not the time to lose his temper. The fire could not be stopped after it was put out. The fire burned so fast and so fiercely. At first glance, it was obvious that it was not accidental. Rest assured, great elder princess. I will definitely find out the truth. Duke Xing suppressed his temper and said slowly. Find out the truth. If Zhuozhuo hadn't happened to have something to ask the servant girl and didn't take a bath first, she would have been trapped in the fire at this time. Even if she could escape, she would be too ashamed to live in front of so many people here. Duke Xing, is it natural for your mansion to oppose Zhuozhuo? Or are there too many people who want to kill her? Rui, and great elder princess said angrily. She was not polite to Duke Xing at this time. Thinking of what Xiao Wanru had told her just now, that Zhuozhuo was almost burned to death when she was taking a bath, she was very angry. Duke Xing fought with her for the custody of Zhuozhuo in front of the Empress Dowager, but after he got it, he didn't cherish it. It seemed that he intended to kill Zhuozhuo. From this point of view, Rui and Great Elder Princess didn't believe what Duke Xing said at all. It would be strange if there was a conclusion to this matter. It was obviously done by Madam of Duke Xing and Old Madam. It was no wonder that Rui and Great Elder Princess was so arbitrary. Both Old Madam and Madam of Duke Xing's mansion gave her a bad feeling. If it weren't for this mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, her daughter and son-in-law wouldn't have been reduced to such a situation, leaving only 2 poor children. Great Elder Princess, don't worry. We have to investigate this matter. Duke Xing frowned and said. He only felt that Rui and Great Elder Princess was really unreasonable, as if he was willing to burn this courtyard. Others didn't know, but how could he not know that this courtyard was the wedding house prepared by his wife for his son, and it had been prepared for more than 10 years. A lot of effort had been spent on it. Even if they wanted to burn the courtyard, they wouldn't burn this courtyard. But he couldn't say this to Rui and Great Elder Princess, so he could only say this vaguely. When you investigate this matter, I will follow you to listen. I must know who can't tolerate Zhuozhuo so much. Rui and Great Elder Princess touched the top of Xiao Wanru's head, who had stopped crying, and said to Duke Xing with hatred. She was really angry. Looking at the people brought by Rui and Great Elder Princess, Duke Xing had to compromise. Okay, Rui and Great Elder Princess, please listen to us later. He also wanted to know who did this today. Xiao Wanru, who was in Rui and Great Elder Princess' arms, raised the corners of her pink and red lips silently. It was difficult for Madam of Duke Xing to get rid of the guilt of this trap. Moreover, there were still clues. Chapter 453. The elders were indeed not useless. Soon, they caught the girl who had a rendezvous with Wang Xingxue. Looking at the girl's face, Xiao Wanru felt that it was really a joke. The beautiful maid in front of her turned out to be the personal maid of Ning Xueqing, who had been with Wang Xingxue in the last life and this life. Her name seemed to be Dongxing. In the last life, the maid named Dongxing and Ning Xueqing knelt together in the lobby of Duke Xing's mansion. In front of all the guests, she cried and told them about the deep friendship between her miss and Wang Xingxue. She said that they were so close that they could even fight to the death for each other. Xiao Wanru was so vicious that she fell in love with Wang Xingxue and tried to break them up. It was supposed to be a happy ending, but she turned it into a bad marriage. They were obviously in love with each other and the 2 families were about to get married, but it was ruined by her. A woman like Ning Xueqing had ruined her elder sister's marriage before, and now she wanted to ruin other people's marriages. She was really vicious. With the pretense of Ning Xueqing and her servant, her reputation would certainly fall into the mud. Now, the maid named Dongxing knelt in the lobby of Duke Xing's mansion again. However, she looked completely different from that in the last life. She was shivering and her face was pale. At first glance, it could be seen that she was very cold. Her clothes, which were the same as Xiao Wanru's, were still dripping with water. Even though someone threw a blanket to her, she was still shivering in the cold. Rui and Great Elder Princess was sitting in the middle of the lobby, and Duke Xing was the guest. The elders were sitting on both sides, and Madam of Duke Xing was sitting behind Duke Xing. At this time, she was in the same state as Dongxing. She was also pale and shivering all over. Of course, she didn't look like this because she was cold, but because she was distressed. Xiao Wanru saw with her own eyes that most of the courtyard had been burned down, leaving only some frames outside that could not be burned. It was really clean. The quality of Chu Liuchen's kerosene was really good. It was definitely not the kind of kerosene that could be bought casually outside. For this reason, Duke Xing's mansion couldn't get away with it. Although it couldn't be bought outside, it didn't mean that Duke Xing's mansion didn't have it. Xiao Wanru sat beside Rui and Great Elder Princess. Rui, and great elder princess, felt sorry for her granddaughter, so she let her lean on her. Sensing Xiao Wanru's thin body, Rui, and great elder princess's face became increasingly livid, and her eyes fell coldly on the couple kneeling on the ground. Not only Dongxing, but also Wang Xingxue. However, she did not say anything. At this moment, she was just an observer. Before she had enough evidence, she did not want to say anything for the time being. What's going on with you two? Hearing the words of the elders and looking at the couple kneeling down below, Duke Xing was so angry that his face turned green. He pounded the table and said angrily. Second uncle, I. Wang Xingxue was very flustered. He didn't know why things had changed so much. It was Xiao Wanru who was supposed to be schemed against, and it was also Xiao Wanru who was caught by others. Why did Dongxing catch the fire? Why did Xiao Wanru's courtyard catch fire so coincidentally? Moreover, shouldn't she have washed up and changed her clothes at this time? As long as she changed her clothes, he would be able to say whatever he wanted. However, there was a fire, so Dongxing did not dare to go to the courtyard again. She changed her direction and found a place to hide. She planned to dry up a little before running out to see what was going on. Unexpectedly, she was caught in this way, and Xiao Wanru actually escaped from the fire in the same clothes. The two clothes, one dry and the other wet, were exactly the same, which was very obvious. Duke Xing suppressed his anger and asked, "Who is this?" I don't know." Wang Xingxue stammered and said subconsciously. Now he just wanted to disassociate himself from Dongxing. "This woman is not from our mansion." Nanny Xing's affirmative voice came from behind Madame of Duke Xing. The reason why she dared to say so was that this matter was indeed not arranged by her, or this woman was not arranged by her. She only asked Wang Xingxue to find a woman to pretend to be Xiao Wanru, but she could not be a member of Duke Xing's mansion. As for the specific person, it was up to Wang Xingxue. The woman was brought in by Wang Xingxue, and if something happened, it had nothing to do with Duke Xing's mansion. "Who are you? If you don't tell me, I'll send you to the government for the crimes of stealing an official's family and setting people on fire," Duke Xing said coldly. His round face became longer at this time, with a gloomy expression that had never been seen before, which made him look extremely frightening. The elders looked at each other and did not dare to speak for a while. Duke Xing was obviously really angry. "I passed by your mansion today and saw that it was very lively here, so I sneaked in to have a look. I didn't want to do anything. Later, after dinner, I walked around casually and met this child Wang. Unexpectedly, as soon as he saw me, he held me and acted intimately with me. After being discovered, I jumped into the lake and escaped. I really don't know anything. Please let me go," Dongxing cried loudly. If she was sent to the government with these two crimes, she would really lose her life. "You passed by accidentally and sneaked into the mansion. You walked around casually and met Xingxue," Duke Xing repeated with a gloomy face. "Xingxue, who do you think she is? Why did you stop a woman you don't know for no reason?" Madame of Duke Xing reacted very quickly. She wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes and asked sternly. Who did he think this woman was? Anyone with eyes could see that Xiao Wanru's clothes were the same as this woman's clothes. The embroidery was exactly the same, the color was exactly the same, and even the details were exactly the same. It was obvious that they were two identical sets of clothes. If he still thought this woman was someone else, there was no one else but Xiao Wanru. Could it be that Wang Xingxue had been waiting for this fifth Miss Xiao at that time? Thinking about it in this way, it seemed to make sense. Although the elders did not dare to speak carelessly because of the presence of Rui and great elder princess, they all whispered to each other. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. At this time, Madame of Duke Xing still did not forget to smear her name. She raised her watery eyes and looked at Madame of Duke Xing calmly. "Second aunt, I know you don't like me, but you can't slander me like this. The clothes I am wearing are given by you." The clothes I brought before have all been soiled by your servants, so I have to wear the clothes you gave me today. There are many people in the world who wear the same clothes, but there should be many people who wear the same clothes. What's more, they are in Duke Xing's mansion. She came here today to shed all pretenses of cordiality. She was young. If she didn't shed all pretenses today, she would be specially manipulated by others in the future. It would be better for her to make this matter bigger today. The bigger the better, so she was really not afraid of Madame of Duke Xing slandering her. Wanru, what nonsense are you talking about? The clothes you brought are wet. When the servants cleaned the courtyard, they thought they belonged to your big sister. Madame of Duke Xing was stunned by Xiao Wanru's words. She never expected that an 11-year-old child, who had suffered such a great shock, could still speak so logically, especially when it came to the fact that the clothes she brought before could not be worn. She had done it flawlessly. How did Xiao Wanru find out? They thought they belonged to my big sister, so they deliberately soaked my clothes so that I had no clothes to wear. Second aunt, can you tell me why there are 2 sets of clothes exactly the same? Xiao Wanru asked unhurriedly. Reporting to 5th Miss, these clothes were prepared by me. Madam asked you to prepare a few sets of better clothes, so I directly went to a ready-made clothing store to buy a few sets for you. These 2 sets are very beautiful. Although they are exactly the same, they are different from ordinary ones. I thought that you might like them, so I bought 1 more set. After coming back, I was scolded by Madam. She said that it was useless to buy 2 sets of the same clothes, so I put the other set in my room. Nanny Xing took a step forward and said. Her words were flawless, so all of this was just a misunderstanding. Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth, and a trace of coldness flashed in her eyes. If she didn't know Dongxing, she might have been deceived by her words. However, seeing the elders nodding repeatedly, she knew that they listened to Nanny Xing's words very much. Although the elders were not as powerful as Duke Xing, so many of them standing here were Duke Xing's biggest barrier. Since it's Nanny Xing's fault, why did second aunt make Child Wang say that he thought this woman was someone else? Who else in this room is wearing the same clothes except me? Second aunt, just say what you want to say. Grandma is sitting here. If you are right, it doesn't matter even if I die today to apologize. As soon as she said this, everyone was shocked. No one expected that Xiao Wanru was so fierce that she dared to say such words in front of everyone. Moreover, she looked calm as if she was talking about someone else's business. For a moment, the elders hesitated and subconsciously felt that Xiao Wanru was not guilty. Was it really Madame of Duke Xing's doing? But how could it be possible? Madame of Duke Xing had always been gentle, dignified, and kind to her clansmen. How could she do such a vicious thing? Madame of Duke Xing's face turned red and she glared at Xiao Wanru. How dare she say such words? She had just entered the mansion for the first time, but she dared to say such decisive words in front of so many elders. Wasn't she afraid that she couldn't find evidence in the end and would use her life to prove it? She took a deep breath and held the armrest of the chair with trembling hands. Until now, she had not recovered from the pain of the yard being burned. Wanru, it's second aunt's fault. I was anxious and flustered just now and was led by this woman. This matter will be investigated. Don't worry. Her words were very gentle. Everyone could see that Madame of Duke Xing was in a very bad situation at the moment. But even in this situation, she could still comfort Xiao Wanru and show that what she said just now was wrong. No matter from which aspect, Madame of Duke Xing in front of them was worthy of respect. However, the 5th Miss, at a young age, had gone too far with her elders. Thank you for your understanding, second aunt. I almost thought that I was going to be burned to death in there just now. I had just found my relatives, and I was going to be burned to death in there. Xiao Wanru's eyes turned red, and her voice choked with sobs. What happened just now was indeed too dangerous, and she was indeed almost burned to death in there. At this moment, everyone would think that someone was trying to harm her. After all, she was just an 11-year-old girl. Thinking of this, the elders felt that it was reasonable for her to make a slip of the tongue and directly accuse Madame of Duke Xing just now. After all, she was so young. Chapter 454. Madame of Duke Xing didn't expect that Xiao Wanru could immediately change the elders' views with a few words. Seeing the elders nodding as they listened to her and looking full of pity, Madame of Duke Xing was so angry that she almost couldn't control herself. "Madam, please wait a moment," Nanny Xing said in a low voice and looked at Dongxing. It was hard to explain this matter now. Even if it couldn't directly ruin the fifth Miss's reputation or kill her, at least it would cause others to talk about it. Wang Xingxue could insist that he had recognized the wrong person, but he certainly wouldn't say who the real Dongxing was. If he didn't say it, Rui and Great Elder Princess couldn't intervene. But if he didn't say it, everyone could see it clearly. With so many elders in the clan, it wouldn't sound good if it was spread out. Madame of Duke Xing nodded. Today's matter was not over yet. But in the next moment, the calmness on her face froze. "Great Elder Princess, I know this person." Yujie's voice was particularly clear in the room. Madame of Duke Xing grabbed Nanny Xing's hand, and her body trembled slightly. "Madam, even if it is found out that it has something to do with us, cousin young master won't say it's you." Nanny Xing also felt that it was not good, but she had to appease Madame of Duke Xing at this moment, so she lowered her voice and said, "Who is she?" Rui and Great Elder Princess said coldly. "This girl is the servant girl of the second Miss of Ning's mansion." The second Miss of Ning's mansion has a close relationship with Child Wang, which is very unusual. When our Miss was in Qin's mansion, she investigated the Ning's mansion because of the first Miss and knew that there were two Misses in the Ning's mansion. The first Miss has a close relationship with the heir of Duke Yong, and the second Miss has a close relationship with Child Wang. This is known by all the shops around the Ning's mansion. Yujie pointed at Dongxing and testified loudly. Just now, she had received a hint from Xiao Yanru to tell Xiao Yanru about Dongxing's identity. Yujie did know Dongxing, and it was found out when Xiao Wanru asked her to investigate it. What she said just now was also the result of her investigation, and there was evidence. In that case, it was reasonable for her to investigate Ning's mansion because of Xiao Yanru. The affair between Di Yan and Ning Kaixian was also a big scandal in the capital city, and it was a series of scandals. Almost everyone in the capital city knew it. First, Qin Yuru made trouble in the Ning's mansion, and then Ning Kaixian framed Qin Yuru and asked people to ruin her reputation. Then Ning Kaixian knelt at the gate of Qin's mansion and begged to be Di Yan's Cheng's concubine. After that, she was sent to the yamen. It was said that Di Yan was really infatuated with Qin Yuru. Even after Qin Yuru hooked up with Prince Cheng, the heir of Duke Yong's mansion still wholeheartedly proposed to Qin Yuru. It was said that the wedding date had been advanced. Of course, some people thought that Di Yan was really stupid. No one knew how many times he had been cuckolded, but he still wore it so strictly. Wasn't he afraid of sweating in hot weather? Of course, the sweat was also green. Di Yan and Ning Kaixian had a dirty relationship at that time. What about the second Miss? It seemed that she also had a dirty relationship with Wang Xingxue. Those who knew the master of the Ning's mansion could not help shaking their heads. The two daughters of the Ning's mansion had been raised so lowly. They really looked down on them. "Tell me, who do you think this girl is?" Rui and Great Elder Princess turned her eyes to Wang Xingxue, who was stunned, and shouted sternly. I thought she was the second Miss of the Ning's mansion." Wang Xingxue was sweating, but he had to say so. Rui and Great Elder Princess's eyes almost fell on his face with murderous intent. As long as he said one word against Xiao Wanru, he was afraid that he would not have a good end. Originally, he thought that his second aunt was his backer. But now, seeing Madame of Duke Xing, who was also pale and slightly trembling, Wang Xingxue felt very desperate. He had to mention Ning Xueqing and did not dare to mention Xiao Wanru at all. It was not difficult to find out the relationship between him and Ning Xueqing, and it was easy to find out Dongxing's identity. Hearing Wang Xingshue's words, Madame of Duke Xing almost fainted and glared at Wang Xingxue with resentment. He did not mention Xiao Wanru, which meant that it had nothing to do with Xiao Wanru. After plotting for so long, Xiao Wanru was not harmed at all. She was not reconciled to it. In this case, Duke Xing, send him to the official office. It should be easy to find out that a maid pretended to be her master and had a secret rendezvous with him. Rui, and great elder princess, looked up at Duke Xing and said coldly. She could not involve her granddaughter in such a disgraceful thing, so she could only let it go. It was not difficult to deal with Wang Xingxue and a maid, but she was afraid that her granddaughter would also be involved. Now it had nothing to do with her granddaughter at all, which was the best. Great elder princess, this is not a big deal. It's just that Xiao Wanru's personal morality is at a disadvantage. Since this girl is like this with him, she can be his concubine. The one in Ning's mansion can also be his concubine. Duke Xing sighed and begged Rui, and great elder princess helplessly. This matter did not involve Xiao Wanru. Strictly speaking, it was indeed a private matter, so it was reasonable for Duke Xing, an elder, to deal with it in this way. Even the elders sitting here could not say anything. This matter had nothing to do with the Xiao family. Neither Wang Xingxue nor the second miss of Ning's mansion had anything to do with the Xiao family. Since it had nothing to do with them, they all thought it was not a bad idea to use Duke Xing as a concubine, so they all nodded at once. It's indeed a disadvantage to be his personal morality, but it doesn't matter if he is a concubine. It's just a concubine, which is not a big deal. The second miss of Ning's mansion can only be a concubine now. Xiao Wanru looked at everyone's reaction coldly and then looked at Dongxing, who was paralyzed on the ground with her eyes wide open. Suddenly, she reached out to pull Rui, and great elder princess's sleeve, and said coquettishly, "Grandma, please spare this girl's life. For the sake that she is a concubine of her master, you have to spare their lives." In the last life, this girl had helped Ning Xueqing to trample her into the mud. In this life, she wanted to see how loyal she would be to her master. Her good Mississippi Rui, and great elder princess, obviously understood Xiao Wanru's words. She reached out to touch Xiao Wanru's hair, nodded, and said, "Let's do as Duke Xing said. But we can't let go of the fact that you set fire to Zhuozhuo's courtyard today." Who has the ability to set fire to Zhuozhuo's courtyard? I asked someone to check it just now. They used good kerosene. Who in this mansion can use good kerosene and sprinkle it in Zhuozhuo's courtyard without anyone knowing and burn it when Zhuozhuo is taking a bath? After Rui, and great elder princess, finished speaking, she patted the table heavily and said with a fierce face, "Who in Duke Xing's mansion wants to hurt Zhuozhuo? Who can't tolerate Zhuozhuo? Who hates Zhuozhuo so much that he even wants to kill her?" Rui, and great elder princess's words became sharper and sharper, and Duke Xing's mansion began to sweat. Ordinary people couldn't afford good kerosene, but Duke Xing's mansion happened to have it. However, this kind of dangerous product couldn't be used by everyone. Except for a few senior masters of Duke Xing's mansion, even the young generation couldn't be used at will. Duke Xing wanted to look back at Madame of Duke Xing, but he was afraid that Rui, and great elder princess, would find out, so he could only cough in a low voice. "When we were in the palace, Empress Dowager heard it. Old Madame of your mansion said that she hated Zhuozhuo very much. Today, such a big thing happened, but she didn't come out to greet Zhuozhuo. It can be seen that she hates Zhuozhuo very much. Even if Zhuozhuo is burned to death, it has nothing to do with her, right?" Rui, and great elder princess, didn't wait for Duke Xing to speak and said sternly. Xiao Wanru leaned into Rui, and great elder princess's arms, and cried in a low voice. Anyone who was hated by her biological grandmother and disliked her so much that she didn't even care about her safety would be sad and aggrieved. Thinking about it, fifth Miss Xiao was indeed pitiful. She had lost her biological parents, and even her biological grandmother treated her so coldly. Thinking about it carefully, Duke Xing's mansion immediately felt creepy. Today, the fire started because someone set it on fire, and the timing was excellent. It was when fifth Miss Xiao was taking a bath. When the fire started, if fifth Miss Xiao wanted to live, she must escape naked. But if she escaped naked, there were so many people outside, and her reputation was ruined, how could she survive? Even if she was backed by Rui and great elder princess, it was useless. A woman's reputation was as important as the sky, and the Xiao family was the most polite and well-behaved clan. There seemed to be no one in the inner courtyard of Duke Xing's mansion who could do this except old Madame. But when someone saw Madame of Duke Xing's pale face, he suddenly felt that Madame of Duke Xing might also be able to do this. Duke Xing's face changed greatly. He suddenly stood up and bowed deeply to Rui and great elder princess. Great elder princess, please be careful with your words. What? Can't I say what I did? Even the Empress Dowager knows your mother's malice towards Zhuozhuo. Judging from the arson situation, it should be the master of your mansion. Duke Xing, who do you think is most likely to hurt Zhuozhuo in your mansion? Rui and great elder princess said without retreating. Duke Xing sweated on his head and secretly blamed his mother in his heart. How could she say such words in front of the Empress Dowager? Great elder princess, my mother has not been in charge of internal affairs for many years. She is old and sometimes a little confused, but she doesn't really hate anyone. Duke Xing had to explain. She has not been in charge of internal affairs for many years, which means that Madame of Duke Xing has been in charge of internal affairs for so many years. Madam, tell me who has such great ability to hurt Zhuozhuo and hates her so much. I heard that when my son was in Duke Xing's mansion, he didn't get along well with Madam. Rui and great elder princess took the opportunity to shift the topic to Madame of Duke Xing. Xiao Wanru couldn't help secretly praising her grandmother. Her grandmother deserved to be the eldest princess. Her words were imposing and sharp. However, because of her identity and her current situation, her words made her speak boldly. Great elder princess, how could I? Madame of Duke Xing said in shock. She suddenly covered her face with a handkerchief and cried, Great elder princess, Wanru is my niece. For her, I even gave her the best courtyard in order to make up for years of debt. How could I want to burn her to death? That courtyard is my painstaking effort for years. Chapter 455. If it's not you, then who is it? Madame of Duke Xing is in charge of the inner court of Duke Xing's mansion and has always been praised by the aristocratic families. But why can't you explain it clearly today? Ruyan great elder princess sneered. Today's matter was not her, but Madame of Duke Xing would be blamed. Madame of Duke Xing was speechless. She blushed and wiped her tears with a handkerchief. Great elder princess, I really don't know what's going on. Although I am in charge of most of the affairs in the inner court, there are some things that I don't know. Madam, do you mean that the part that you don't know is old Madam's idea? Old Madam is your mother-in-law. You can't interfere in your mother-in-law's affairs, right? Ruyan great elder princess asked. How could it be old Madam? Madame of Duke Xing was so flustered that she didn't even have time to wipe the tears on her face. Since it has nothing to do with old Madam, who is related to your mansion? The Madam of the third branch? Because of the hatred between you and the first Miss of Qin's mansion, you vent your anger on Zhuozhuo, deal with Zhuozhuo fiercely, and even want to kill her? Ruyan great elder princess became more and more fierce. The meaning of pressing her words made everyone in the Xiao's mansion look at each other and not dare to say anything. Great elder princess was targeting Duke Xing's mansion. Compared with the matter of fifth Miss Xiao, the affair between a man and a woman was much smaller. Everyone's attention was attracted by the conversation between the two people. According to Ruyan great elder princess, someone in this mansion wanted to harm fifth Miss Xiao. Was it old Madam, Madam of Duke Xing, or the Madam of the third branch? Thinking of this, everyone present was nervous. Everyone's hearts were pounding. If this matter was really found out, the entire Xiao clan might be implicated. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Madame of Duke Xing. Duke Xing coughed in a low voice and came out to smooth things over. Great elder princess, don't worry. We will definitely investigate this matter. If we find someone, no matter who he is, we will hand him over to Great Elder Princess for investigation. What if we can't find him? Ruyan Great Elder Princess slightly twitched the corner of her mouth and said coldly, aren't there many cases in the officialdom that have never been investigated and finally left unsolved? Others didn't know the tricks in the officialdom, but how could Great Elder Princess not know it? You push me, I push you, and then nothing happens. Great Elder Princess, our mansion will try our best to investigate it. Duke Xing said uneasily. How long will it take to find out? Rui and Great Elder Princess asked with a cold face. Duke Xing couldn't answer this question. He looked at Madame of Duke Xing, who looked aggrieved and pale, and then looked at Xiao Wanru, who was still buried in Rui and Great Elder Princess' arms. He knew that he had to answer, so he could only bite the bullet and say, Great Elder Princess, rest assured. I will do it as soon as possible. As soon as possible. Isn't there a correct time? Rui and Great Elder Princess's face turned cold and her eyes turned cold. It's hard to say. Duke Xing's forehead began to sweat. Duke Xing, don't you think that you are deliberately shirking your responsibility? You said that you will find out the truth, but you don't know when you will find out. Maybe Zhuozhuo will die in your mansion before you find out the truth. How long has it been? Zhuozhuo was only recognized in your mansion's genealogy and almost lost her life. She was set up so viciously. If you let someone secretly prepare for a few more days, will Zhuozhuo still be alive? Rui and Great Elder Princess raised her voice and glanced coldly at all the elders of the Shao clan present. You set up Zhuozhuo by taking advantage of the fact that all the elders of the Shao clan are here today. You set up a trap within a trap. What happened before and what happened now is the same. What kind of hatred made you unable to tolerate Zhuozhuo? Although Xiao Wanru was not involved in the previous matter, everyone was smart and could see clearly that it was originally going to involve Xiao Wanru. What kind of hatred did a girl who had just entered the mansion have? What kind of hatred did a girl who had just entered the mansion have? It was said that old Madame and Madame of Duke Xing both didn't like her and even hated her. There had been rumors in the capital city that old Madame liked the first Miss Qin. Now it was proved that this fifth Miss Xiao was fake. Did old Madame dislike the real fifth Miss Xiao? But even if she didn't like her, she shouldn't be so vicious, right? The elders didn't dare to speak and could only continue to sit and watch. Some of them even regretted coming here today. It was obviously not a good thing. It will never happen in the future. Duke Xing promised Rui and Great Elder Princess. Was it Duke Xing who set fire to Zhuozhuo? Rui and Great Elder Princess sneered. How is it possible? Duke Xing's smile became more and more forced. How can Great Elder Princess think so? Since it was not Duke Xing who did it, why do you think it won't happen in the future? Rui and Great Elder Princess sneered. Duke Xing couldn't answer this question for a while. Madame of Duke Xing hated Rui and Great Elder Princess secretly. She wanted to answer by herself, but seeing that Rui and Great Elder Princess was a little afraid, she could only gently push Nanny Sheng and signal her to speak. Great Elder Princess. Nanny Sheng had to speak, but was interrupted by Rui and Great Elder Princess rudely, I'm talking to your masters. Why do you interrupt as a servant? Is this the rule of Duke Xing's mansion? Duke Xing's chubby face turned red and he glared at Nanny Sheng fiercely. In the past, everyone said that Duke Xing's mansion had rules. Today, he had lost all his face. Nanny Sheng hurriedly lowered her head and didn't dare to speak again. She was ashamed. Of course, she couldn't interrupt in front of Rui and Great Elder Princess. Xiao Wanru raised her head slightly, wiped her tears with a handkerchief, and sat up straight. Her little body was still twitching, and it could be seen that she was too sad to speak. In fact, she had no tears at this time. Under the handkerchief, her eyes were slightly red, but there was coldness in her eyes. She sneered in her heart. If it weren't for her grandma's arrival today, even if she had evidence, she would be scolded by Duke Xing and his wife in the end. After all, they were her elders. On this point, she couldn't be too overbearing like her maternal grandmother. Duke Xing, tell me how to find out the truth now and how to save Zhuozhuo's life. Is your mansion really safe? After scolding Nanny Sheng, Rui and Great Elder Princess continued to ask. This. Duke Xing couldn't think of a good way at the moment, and he didn't dare to guarantee that she would be safe. Since there is something in your mansion, Zhuozhuo can live in my place first. We'll talk about it after you find out the truth, in case such a thing happens again. Rui and Great Elder Princess stood up, took Xiao Wanru's hand, and said. But. Madam of Duke Xing was anxious and wanted to stop her. What else do you want to say, Madam of Duke Xing? Do you want Zhuozhuo to stay and be killed? Rui and Great Elder Princess looked sideways at Madam of Duke Xing and didn't give her any face at all. Madam of Duke Xing didn't dare to look at Rui and Great Elder Princess. She bit her lip and could only look at Duke Xing. She didn't dare to say that she wanted Xiao Wanru to stay. If she asked Xiao Wanru to leave at this time, it would sound bad if it was spread out. There were many elders present. Madam of Duke Xing was sure that as soon as Xiao Wanru left, there would be all kinds of rumors against Duke Xing's mansion in the capital city tomorrow. Since Great Elder Princess misses your granddaughter, please take care of Wanru for a few days. Duke Xing sighed helplessly. Although he knew that Xiao Wanru's departure would be bad for the reputation of Duke Xing's mansion, he had to give in. Rui and Great Elder Princess asked him to find out the arsonist immediately. He couldn't find it for the time being, so he could only let it be. However, Duke Xing didn't dare to say that he would stay for a few days. I hope Duke Xing can find out the matter as soon as possible. I will take Zhuozhuo to the Imperial Palace to see the Empress Dowager tomorrow. Rui and Great Elder Princess glanced at everyone coldly and said. Duke Xing and Madam of Duke Xing's faces changed dramatically. They couldn't suppress this matter even if they wanted to. They had to go to old Madam to discuss the countermeasures later. Rui and Great Elder Princess took Xiao Wanru's hand and walked out. After a few steps, Xiao Wanru suddenly gently broke away from Rui and Great Elder Princess's hand, turned back to Duke Xing and Madam of Duke Xing, and bowed gracefully. Wanru says goodbye to second uncle and second aunt. Her action was extremely polite. Even with Rui and Great Elder Princess's support, she didn't show any arrogance. The elders of the Xiao family nodded secretly. This fifth Miss Xiao was polite. She didn't resent such a big fright and grievance. She was a good girl. Xiao Wanru, go to Great Elder Princess's house and stay for a few days. If you need anything, ask someone to come and get it, Duke Xing said with a guilty look. Yes, Wanru, just tell me what you want. Your second uncle will definitely find out the truth and won't let you suffer any grievance. At this time, Madam of Duke Xing also adjusted her mood and looked at Xiao Wanru pitifully with red eyes. Her gentle and reluctant look made her seem as if she was Xiao Wanru's real mother. Xiao Wanru calmly glanced at Madam of Duke Xing, who pretended to be a kind mother, and then looked at Duke Xing, who had a gentle face. She nodded slightly and turned to walk towards Rui and Great Elder Princess. Rui and Great Elder Princess pulled her away. Yujie and Chu Lu followed closely. Everything that should be burned had been burned, and the two of them didn't salute. After that, they left with the 4 rough old maids that Great Elder Princess had left for Xiao Wanru. Watching Rui and Great Elder Princess and others leave, Duke Xing made a circle to all the elders present and said with a wry smile, "Please forgive me for making a fool of myself in front of all the elders today. I have to investigate something now, so I won't keep you here." "You're welcome, Duke. We're all so tired. We should go back now." Everyone was discerning and knew that this was not a small matter. Duke Xing was not in the mood to greet them at this time, so he stood up and said goodbye one by one. After everyone left, only Duke Xing, his wife, a group of servants, Wang Xingxue, who was kneeling on one side, and Dongxing, who was huddled there, were left. Chapter 456. Madam of Duke Xing covered her face and glared at Duke Xing angrily. Duke, why did you hit me? Duke Xing's round face slowly twisted, and then he slowly calmed down. He raised his eyes and looked at Madame of Duke Xing coldly. You've done a good job in the family. Although his voice was still cold, his tone had calmed down. It was obvious that he had quickly stabilized his emotions. Madame of Duke Xing clenched her hands, which were not covering her face. Then she slowly relaxed and took a deep breath. Duke Xing interrupted her. Punish these two people. I'll go to see my mother. After saying that, he turned around and left, leaving the servants and Madame of Duke Xing alone in the room. Staring at Duke Xing's receding figure, Madame of Duke Xing suddenly picked up the teacup beside her and smashed it hard on the ground. She cursed as she smashed it. It seemed that she was extremely angry. Not only did she not vent her anger after smashing a teacup, she kicked a tea table beside her, which fell to the ground with a loud noise. Madam, please calm down. The High Duke failed just now. Look at him, he didn't say anything after that. Nanny Sheng hurriedly came over to persuade Madame of Duke Xing. She held Madame of Duke Xing's sleeves and pulled her to sit down in a chair beside her while comforting her in a low voice. Madam, too many things have happened today. Duke was just angry for a while. In the past, he would never be so out of control. Fifth young mistress's matter is not over yet. She may still have to go to the palace tomorrow. High Duke is only blaming you because he is upset. You see, only you are close to High Duke. Who else can High Duke blame other than you? Being close to him is not as good as that person. Madame of Duke Xing was so angry that her face turned pale. Her eyes looked dark and sharp, and the hatred almost overflowed from the corners of her eyes. Madam, don't say that. This. Nanny Sheng hurriedly interrupted her and said with trembling hands and feet. Madame of Duke Xing took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. This time, she didn't say anything. The hall suddenly became quiet again. The servant girls serving on the side looked down, afraid that Madame of Duke Xing would target them. Whoever was targeted now would be unlucky. Wang Xingxue looked at Madame of Duke Xing in horror. He just heard Madame of Duke Xing's curse. Although her voice was low and a little vague, he could tell that Madame of Duke Xing was cursing a woman. Second maternal uncle had slapped her. Not only did she lose her usual dignified demeanor, but she was also scolding an unknown woman. Could it be that second maternal uncle had an affair outside? Everyone in the capital knew that second maternal uncle and second maternal aunt's relationship was the best. The two of them were childhood sweethearts and had almost grown up together. Later on, they got together again. In the Fu, other than second maternal uncle's Tong Fang who had been promoted to the position of Yin Yang, no one else had been promoted. Who was second maternal aunt scolding? If second Xing, Wang's second uncle really had a woman outside, Xing, at Xing Wang, Wang Xing, Wang Xing, Wang. But he immediately suppressed his anger. Wang Xingxue had never seen Madame of Duke Xing like this before. Her vicious expression was ferocious with a bit of coldness, which made him involuntarily feel terrified. Seeing Madame of Duke Xing turn her eyes to him, Wang Xingxue hurriedly called in a fawning manner, "Second aunt." He was afraid that Madame of Duke Xing would see the difference in his eyes. Tomorrow morning, I'll bring a pair of master and servant from Ning's mansion in as concubines for you. Madame of Duke Xing waved her hand and said. She was not in the mood to deal with Wang Xingxue's matter at all. Her good plan was ruined, and so many things happened. Duke Xing just slapped her hard in front of the servants without giving her any face. It would be strange if she was in a good mood now. She even felt annoyed when she saw the people in front of her, which reminded her of the slap Duke Xing gave her in public just now. Yes, thank you, second aunt. Wang Xingxue, who had good eyesight, said respectfully in a hurry. You two can leave. Madame of Duke Xing said coldly. Wang Xingxue stood up, his body swaying. He had been kneeling for a long time, and his legs were weak. Fortunately, he was not injured. When he stood firm, he pulled up Dongxing, whose face and nose were blue and white from the cold, and then pulled her out of the room. Dongxing was stiff and fell to the ground after being pulled. Madame of Duke Xing frowned in disgust and said, "Two maids come and help pull her out. Don't let her die here and dirty the ground." "Yes, yes, second aunt, I'll take her away right away." Wang Xingxue nodded. He bent down and said. Two servant girls came over and helped him take Dongxing's hand away. Nanny Xing shook her head secretly. Even if this girl did not die, she would be disabled in the future. Even a man might not be able to stand jumping into the water in winter. However, this had nothing to do with them. It was Wang Xingxue who found the servant girl. Even if she died, it was not Madame's fault. "Let's go inside and have a look." Madame of Duke Xing had recovered at this time. She calmed down, stood up, and gave an order. "Yes, madam." Nanny Xing understood that she was worried about the discussion between Duke Xing and old madam, so she nodded and said. After asking the servant girls to clean the hall again, Madame of Duke Xing hurried to old madam's courtyard in the backyard. When she passed by the courtyard that had been burned before, she immediately remembered that this courtyard was prepared for her son. She felt very distressed, but there was nothing she could do now. She could only grit her teeth and go directly to the backyard. If she found out who had set fire to the courtyard, she would definitely tear her into pieces. Rui and Great Elder Princess took Xiao Wanru back to Great Elder Princess's mansion. The courtyard had been prepared long ago. It should be said that when Rui and Great Elder Princess and Xiao Wanru recognized each other, the courtyard had been arranged and prepared for Xiao Wanru to live in Rui and Great Elder Princess's mansion. She was the only master in Great Elder Princess's mansion, but now there were three. Xiao Wanru freshened up again. After that, she returned to the main room. Rui and Great Elder Princess was still sitting there drinking tea, with only Nanny Gao serving her. Xiao Wanru sat down opposite Great Elder Princess. Yujie served tea and also retreated into the shadow of the lamp. Great Elder Princess put down the teacup in her hand and asked, "Are you hurt anywhere?" "Grandma, don't worry. I'm fine. I'm not hurt at all." Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and said softly. There was a trace of admiration in her watery eyes, which made Great Elder Princess's heart soften. She just wanted to dig out her heart. However, she kept a straight face and snorted coldly, "Tell me what happened today. Why did you do this?" "Grandma, it's useless for you to act coquettishly. I want to hear your real thoughts. When I go to the palace to meet the Empress Dowager tomorrow, I can also follow your thoughts." Great Elder Princess said with anger on her face, "You are a little girl, but you are too bold. If something really happens, what should I and Hao-er do? It's not easy for Hao-er to have a new sister like you, and it's not easy for me to have a granddaughter like you. Do you have to put yourself in such a dangerous place?" Great Elder Princess was not stupid. Based on what had happened before, and Xiao Wanru had sent someone to tell Great Elder Princess to come over if something happened in Duke Xing's mansion at night, she knew that Xiao Wanru must have planned it, although she still hadn't figured out how Xiao Wanru did it. At that time, she only brought two servant girls and some clothes to change into Duke Xing's mansion. It was impossible for her to bring things like kerosene. She didn't know how this girl did such a dangerous thing. Except for the other masters of Duke Xing's mansion, Xiao Wanru was the one who controlled the grooming. If she wanted to take a bath, she could do it immediately. If she didn't want to take a bath, she might say that she was delayed by something. "Grandma, don't be angry." Xiao Wanru reached out to hold Great Elder Princess's hand, shook it, and said in a sweet voice. "How can I not be angry? Have you ever thought about what to do if something really happens?" Looking at Xiao Wanru, who was delicate, Great Elder Princess suddenly became furious with a sharp look. She had an amazing momentum, and at this time, she was so angry that no one dared to look at her directly. However, her anger warmed Xiao Wanru's heart. She had never seen this kind of heartfelt concern and anger from others before. Her eyes turned slightly red at this moment. Grandma, I'm really fine. I really planned it. Xiao Wanru shook Great Elder Princess's hand again and said obediently, Grandma, I can't live in Duke Xing's mansion, but it's unrealistic for me not to live there. If I live there now, I might be schemed against in a few days. I'm still too young. So, today's fire was my own doing. She planned it secretly. She didn't want to tell Great Elder Princess the truth because she was afraid that Great Elder Princess would worry about her. But at this time, she took the initiative to mention it. If you don't want to live here, I can take you to live here. How can you carry out such a dangerous plan? Seeing that she told the truth, Great Elder Princess's expression softened a little. Xiao Wanru sighed softly and said, Grandma, you can only stay here for a few days at most because of the relationship between you and the Empress Dowager. Grandma, you don't have a legitimate reason to stay here. How must have used your relationship with the Empress Dowager. She was not How She knew that there were some things that Great Elder Princess was also embarrassed about, such as How and her. How was the son of Duke Xing's mansion, so how could he live in Great Elder Princess's mansion for a long time? However, How situation was special. On the one hand, How was willing to live in Great Elder Princess's mansion and was willing to be close to Great Elder Princess. On the other hand, Duke Xing's mansion's behavior and How who was becoming more and more well-behaved, made people suspect that Duke Xing's mansion was trying to kill How In contrast, with the request of Great Elder Princess and Empress Dowager, Duke Xing's mansion was in the wrong, so they suppressed Duke Xing's mansion and raised How in Great Elder Princess's mansion. However, this matter could not be repeated. It was unreasonable for Great Elder Princess to force Xiao Wanru to keep Duke Xing's mansion before Duke Xing's mansion revealed their malice toward Xiao Wanru. Chapter 457. Grandma, it's not the right time for me to stay in Duke Xing's mansion. I want to stay outside for 3 years. Xiao Wanru's voice was soft, but she looked extremely serious. She looked straight at Rui and Great Elder Princess with her watery eyes, and there was visible persistence and firmness in her eyes. She didn't hesitate or flinch at all, as if she didn't know what she said was extremely shocking. It was unheard that a miss from the backyard of an aristocratic family didn't want to live in her mansion for 3 years. What do you think? Great Elder Princess didn't refuse her directly, but her voice softened. She loved this granddaughter very much, but she also knew that this child was smart. There were many things that happened in Jiangzhou Prefecture, but no matter what, this child went to the capital city smoothly. For this reason, Great Elder Princess wouldn't really take her words as a child's words. Why did the first miss of Xiao's mansion leave the mansion? Xiao Wanru sorted out her thoughts and said slowly. The famous first miss of Duke Xing's mansion. Rui and Great Elder Princess frowned. She didn't like Duke Xing and his wife, and of course, she wouldn't like the son and daughter of Madame of Duke Xing. It was said that they were both excellent, but both of them went out to study and were not in the mansion. The first young master went to the south of the Yangtze River to study and only returned to the mansion once in a while. Basically, he was not in the mansion. As for the first miss, she was in the Yuhui nunnery in the suburbs of the capital city. It was said that she learned painting from the nunnery in the nunnery, and she was also dedicated to learning, which was equivalent to cultivating in the Yuhui nunnery. Because of this, she had a better reputation. Do you want to imitate Xiao Yanru's words? Great Elder Princess frowned and disagreed. The first idea she came up with would only make others think that she was ambitious, decent and elegant. But if Xiao Wanru imitated her and used the same reason, it would make others think that she was imitating others and making a fool of herself. Grandma, I don't want to imitate her. I'm different from her. She wants to imitate the ancient virtuous layman, cultivate in the mountains, and learn painting skills from the famous Pushun nun. She wants to be pure and elegant, so she left home for a period of time. At that time, people said that she was elegant and extraordinary. Xiao Wanru said with a faint smile in her eyes. In the last life, Xiao Yanru was also like this. She seemed to be pure and extraordinary. Anyone who saw her would feel that she was as noble as jade, like the snow in the sky. At that time, everyone actually thought that she was going to marry into Prince Yu's mansion. But later, for some reason, she was chosen by the emperor and entered the imperial palace. But even if she entered the palace, she was still the emperor's favorite concubine. Later, she colluded with Chu Liyue to kill him. Others only said that she was as noble as the clouds, but they did not know that she was so vicious. At that time, almost all of Xiao Wanru's suffering in the imperial palace was caused by her. Going to the Yuhui nunnery to learn painting brought her a noble reputation. Unlike other misses from aristocratic families, it seemed that wealth and honor were nothing to her. She studied in the Yuhui nunnery for half a year. After that, she became the most elegant and outstanding noble lady in the capital city with a painting she gave to the Empress Dowager for her birthday. Counting the days, Xiao Yanru was still in the Yuhui nunnery on Mount Donghua at this time. Because she did not want to be disturbed while cultivating in seclusion, she would not go down the mountain even during the spring festival. People only said that she was strong-willed, but only she knew whether she was really strong-willed. Xiao Wanru was sure that on the night of the spring festival eve, Xiao Yanru not only went down the mountain but also met Qin Yuru. She should have, implicitly, given Qin Yuru some advice. Mount Donghua was a small mountain outside the capital city. Although it was similar to Mount Hua, it was not the real Mount Hua and was a long way away from the real Mount Hua. Mount Donghua was very famous, and the most famous one was the Yuhui nunnery on Mount Donghua. It was the largest nunnery around the capital city and was once a nunnery given by the royal family. When Pushun Nun was young, she was a miss from an aristocratic family in the south of the Yangtze River. Later, she lost her hair due to an accident. She was very famous in the capital city with her painting skills. Many aristocratic families wanted to invite her to teach their misses, but they were all rejected. They only said that her apprentice must cultivate in seclusion with her. Xiao Yanru gave up the glory of Duke Xing's mansion and really learned painting from Pushun Nun, which became a gossip. Xiao Yanru admired the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion more and more. Few misses under the age of young could resist the quietness of the nunnery. Moreover, they also followed a group of nuns to do morning classes and get up in the morning. Some madams and misses who saw the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion in the nunnery were full of praise when they mentioned the first Miss Xiao. They only said that she was a fairy who came down from heaven and accidentally fell into the mortal world. She was a person with great fortune. Then how can you leave with a justifiable reason? Great Elder Princess asked in confusion. Grandma, do you think Duke Xing's mansion can find out what happened yesterday and give us an answer? Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and asked softly. Great Elder Princess thought for a while and shook her head. Looking at her granddaughter's confident look, she knew that it was extremely difficult to find out, or it could not be found out at all. Until now, she had not figured out where the kerosene came from. How could she find such a good opportunity to not only break the trap of the couple, but also let the whole Duke Xing's mansion fall into the trap? Do you think they will suspect me? Xiao Wanru asked again. Of course they will. I heard that the courtyard is used by Duke Xing's mansion for the first young master of their mansion to get married. Didn't you say that you wanted to live in Qinghua's courtyard and wipe the screen wall where your father wrote? Great Elder Princess said angrily. At that time, Hao came over crying and said it. She was so angry that she wanted to talk to their old madam of Duke Xing's mansion on the spot. Later, she was stopped by Nanny Gao. They want the courtyard that was burned today, as well as the old residence of my father and mother. One is a courtyard that has been carefully decorated for many years. I'm afraid that not only some things of their mansion but also some things of my mother are arranged in it. How can they let others take advantage of it? As for the courtyard where my father and mother used to live, it is a symbol of their identity. If they live in it, they will be the legitimate heir of Duke Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru said coldly. How dare they? How dare they? How is the heir of Duke Xing's mansion? Rui and Great Elder Princess was furious. She patted the armrest of the chair hard and said angrily, "If they hadn't forced you, your father and mother wouldn't have been forced to stay in Duke Xing's mansion and had to leave. It's all their fault. How dare they mention it now?" As long as she thought of what had happened at that time, Great Elder Princess would be furious. For so many years, when she woke up at night, she would feel sorry for her. If she had known that she would end up like this, she would have kept her daughter and prevented her from marrying into Duke Xing's mansion. She would not have let the emperor issue an edict. "Grandma, slow down. In this situation, how can be the heir, so can the first young master. After all, the current Duke Xing is his father, while his father is only the former heir of Duke Xing's mansion." Seeing that Great Elder Princess was so angry that her eyes turned red, Xiao Wanru quickly comforted her. Great Elder Princess let out a sigh of relief. She knew that it was reasonable, but she just couldn't get over it. Why could they inherit Duke Xing's mansion after harming her daughter and son-in-law, while her daughter and son-in-law died, leaving only a pair of orphans and widows, and even left Zhuozhua outside for a time? Thinking of this, she wished that the fire could be bigger today and the whole Duke Xing's mansion would be burned down. Great Elder Princess also knew that her thoughts were a little too biased, but she couldn't get over it. "Grandma, let's take it slow. I will be away for 3 years. After 3 years, I will grow up and no longer have no right to speak. They can't always treat me as a child. At that time, we will find a way to seek justice for my father and mother. However, in these 3 years, Grandma, you need to let Duke Xing's mansion appoint the heir of Duke Xing." Xiao Wanru comforted Great Elder Princess. She had a plan for this. Although she didn't like Duke Xing's mansion, she would get back what belonged to Hao for him. Although the name of talent could be admired, what about the name of filial piety? People couldn't say anything about it, right? When the name of talent met the name of filial piety, she would like to see whether the name of talent or the name of filial piety was more useful. "I don't need to do this. I haven't been able to appoint the heir of Duke Xing for so many years, and now I can't." Great Elder Princess nodded. Duke Xing's mansion had submitted the memorial to appoint the heir of Duke Xing again and again, but she had tried her best to get the Empress Dowager and the Emperor to reject it. Hao was still young and ignorant before. Now Hao was sensible. At that time, she would show the people of Duke Xing's mansion that her grandson was also promising, not the kind of bully who grew up as a playboy. Great Elder Princess unconsciously followed Xiao Wanru's thoughts. "Duke Xing's mansion can't find out that it has something to do with me, but everyone saw that I almost died. The high-quality kerosene, the fact that I was recorded in the family tree that day, and the time when I was about to take a bath all prove that someone in Duke Xing's mansion intended to harm me." Xiao Wanru held Great Elder Princess's hand and analyzed. Great Elder Princess nodded repeatedly and held Xiao Wanru's hand. Looking at her granddaughter's clear and sharp eyes, even Great Elder Princess, who had always been tough, couldn't help crying at this time. If it weren't for the fact that she had been in a dangerous situation all the time, such a little girl would only embroider in her room now. But now, she was plotting like a little adult. All of this was caused by Duke Xing's mansion. Gritting her teeth and swallowing the tears in her eyes, Great Elder Princess looked more and more determined. No matter what her granddaughter wanted to do, she would support her and never let her be bullied again. She pinched Xiao Wanru's thin little hand a little harder, as if this could give her strength. Chapter 458. 3 years of mourning in the nunnery. In the gorgeous palace, the Empress Dowager was stunned and the string of beads in her hand almost fell down. Rui and Great Elder Princess clearly saw that the string of beads was sent by the master of the Yuhui nunnery. The Buddha beads had been blessed, and the Empress Dowager liked to rub them in her hand. "Empress Dowager, do you think this child should live in Duke Xing's mansion like this? It's only the first day, and she almost lost her life. What's more, she planned to kill Zhuozhua when she was taking a bath at such a good time. Moreover, there is good kerosene. Where did these come from?" Rui and Great Elder Princess wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and said angrily with red eyes. She had always had a good relationship with the Empress Dowager. On the one hand, she got along well with the Empress Dowager before she got married. On the other hand, after her husband died, she lost her only daughter. Her situation could be said to be extremely pitiful. Even so, she was still very strong in front of others. Only in front of the Empress Dowager would she expose her weakness. Knowing that this child meant a lot to her, the Empress Dowager couldn't say anything against it for a while. Empress Dowager, there is a small ancestral hall behind my courtyard, which can also be used as a Buddha hall. Wanru can observe mourning in it. Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion thought for a while and said carefully. She still didn't want Xiao Wanru to leave like this. Last night, she discussed it with her son and daughter-in-law for a long time, but they didn't come to a proper conclusion. She just thought that a little girl couldn't do anything. Even though Rui and Great Elder Princess was behind her, it was not as legitimate as her own family. She could live for a few days, but she couldn't live outside all the time. Rui and Great Elder Princess flew into a rage. She glared at Old Madam and said angrily, "You burned Zhuozhua's courtyard and wanted to kill Zhuozhua. In the end, you sent Zhuozhua to the family temple. What are you up to? This child's parents have been forced to death by you. Now are you going to force her and her brother to death too?" Usually, there was another saying about the small Buddha hall, ancestral hall, and so on. That was, the madams and young ladies who had committed a crime would be sent there to stay for a period of time. This was almost an unwritten rule among the aristocratic families. Empress Dowager was also displeased. She snorted and said, "Old Madam, do you mean that Xiao Wanru has made a mistake? How could Wanru make a mistake? But since she has to observe mourning for her parents, she should stay in the mansion. We can't let her, an unmarried miss, live outside." Old Madam said with a worried face, as if she really cared about Xiao Wanru. "You don't feel at ease living outside, but your young miss has been living outside for some time. How can you feel at ease? Could it be that the first miss is nobler than Zhuozhua and can live wherever she wants?" Ruian Great Elder Princess said aggressively. Wants to learn painting. Old Madam blushed and explained. Is learning painting more important or observing filial piety? Old Madam, you only care about some romantic things, but you don't care about real filial piety. Ruian Great Elder Princess said sarcastically. In fact, learning painting was not a romantic thing, but it was indeed an elegant thing. After being scolded by Great Elder Princess, even Empress Dowager felt that the first Miss Xiao was extremely insensible and disobedient. In order to learn painting, she even went out to live outside and was not afraid of her family's worry. Of course, filial piety is more important. Learning painting is not as important as filial piety. Empress Dowager began to be partial. She had forgotten that when she heard about it before, she had praised Xiao Wanru repeatedly and only said that the first Miss Xiao was a good girl who could be regarded as one of the few talented girls in the capital city. She was elegant and dignified, and Duke Xing's mansion had taught her well. Old Madam's face turned red, but she could not argue. In their discussion yesterday, she did not expect that Xiao Wanru would make such a request, nor did she think of a way to deal with it. She was even more speechless when she mentioned Xiao Yanru just now. Between filial piety and elegance, everyone could get the answer immediately. Naturally, filial piety was more important. Why don't you find out the culprit of the burning of the courtyard in a few days first, and then let Zhuozhua go back? Ruian Great Elder Princess said with a sneer. Old Madam became more and more speechless. Yesterday, she actually suspected her daughter-in-law, but yesterday, Madam of Duke Xing swore to God in her room. She cried and made a fuss, saying that she didn't know and that it had nothing to do with her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have burned the garden, which almost killed her. Hearing this, Old Madam immediately believed it. But if it was not her daughter-in-law, who could it be? After thinking for a night, Old Madam still could not figure it out, but she knew that it was not easy to investigate. You can't find out the culprit, and you haven't found it. If you let my granddaughter live in your mansion, it is like killing her. Old Madam, do you really have this intention? Great Elder Princess stared at old madam and asked sternly. Since your mansion has been investigating for a period of time, and it is indeed not safe for Xiao Wanru to live in your mansion, it is reasonable for her to live in the Yuhui nunnery in the name of observing mourning for her parents. Then it is decided. Tell the public that she will observe mourning for 3 years, and we will talk about other things after 3 years. Seeing that old madam was forced to speechless by Great Elder Princess, the Empress Dowager helped them to make a decision. Since this matter was brought to her, it was naturally the Empress Dowager's intention to make a decision. Since the Empress Dowager had said so, Duke Xing's mansion really had no reason to refuse. Originally, Duke Xing's mansion was in the wrong in the arson incident yesterday. Unless they found a powerful person to solve the arson incident last night, there was not much room for them to argue in this matter. Since the Empress Dowager said so, old madam could only agree. Xiao Wanru, who was under the stairs, breathed a sigh of relief. This matter was finally approved by the Empress Dowager. Come here. The Empress Dowager looked up at Xiao Wanru. After looking her up and down, her eyes fell on a jade pendant on her waist, and she waved to her kindly. A palace maid came over and helped her up. Xiao Wanru walked up the stairs slowly and stood in front of the Empress Dowager. Sit down here. I like such a filial child very much. The Empress Dowager said gently. A palace maid hurriedly brought a chair over and placed it beside the Empress Dowager. Xiao Wanru sat down obediently and felt anxious. At this time, there should be nothing else to do, so she could go back to the mansion, right? Why did the Empress Dowager let her stay? This jade pendant is good. Where did it come from? The Empress Dowager looked at her again, and suddenly her eyes fell on her waist. Let me see. Xiao Wanru hurriedly reached out to take off the jade pendant and respectfully presented it to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager picked up the jade pendant and looked at it carefully. Feeling the warmth of the jade pendant, she looked at Xiao Wanru more and more quietly. Xiao Wanru lowered her head nervously and looked down at her toes. She could feel that the Empress Dowager had been looking at her, and she deeply regretted that she had brought this jade pendant into the palace. She was afraid of meeting Chu Luchen. He had asked her to bring the jade pendant here before. If he saw that she didn't wear it, he might make trouble again. So she had to wear it obediently, just in case. Unexpectedly, she didn't meet Chu Luchen, but attracted the Empress Dowager's attention. The Empress Dowager must have found that this jade pendant belonged to Chu Luchen, right? Thinking of this, her face also turned red. This jade pendant is good. Where did it come from? The Empress Dowager looked at it a few times and asked calmly. Hearing the Empress Dowager's question, Xiao Wanru knew that the Empress Dowager would not reveal this matter. She secretly breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly replied, Empress Dowager, this is a gift from a friend. A friend? The Empress Dowager looked at Xiao Wanru with a faint smile and said. Xiao Wanru was shocked and hurriedly pulled herself together. After calming down, she immediately looked calm. Speaking of this jade pendant, she actually had a clear conscience. It was Chu Luchen who insisted on giving it to her, and she didn't force him to give it to her. I like this jade pendant. Why don't I exchange it with other jade pendants? Seeing that she calmed down so quickly, the Empress Dowager nodded secretly and continued to ask without giving Xiao Wanru a chance to answer. It's my blessing. If you like it, you don't have to exchange it. Xiao Wanru said carefully. There was no need to exchange it. It was Chu Liuchen's thing, not hers. How can I take a child's thing? Come on, get a jade pendant for me. The Empress Dowager leaned back and said with a gentle smile. She reached out and pointed to the chair beside her. Xiao Wanru obediently stepped forward and sat down. A palace maid behind her had already come out with a jade pendant. The Empress Dowager put the jade pendant in her hand on the tray in the palace maid's hand and took out the jade pendant on the tray. She looked at Xiao Wanru and handed it to her with a smile. Her eyes were gentle and approachable. I can't take your jade pendant for nothing. I'll exchange this jade pendant for yours. Thank you for your gift, Empress Dowager. Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered a few times. She didn't know what was going on. Did the Empress Dowager take a fancy to Chu Liuchen's jade pendant? She even had an extremely absurd idea. Could it be that the Empress Dowager had taken a fancy to Chu Liuchen's jade pendant for a long time, but it was inconvenient for her to exchange it with him? Now that she saw it in her hand, she immediately exchanged it for her. Wear this jade pendant with you from now on. My jade pendant is also very nourishing. It has been in my hand for many years, but I haven't given it to anyone. It's rare to see your jade pendant, so I'm even more happy. So I exchanged this jade pendant for the one you like. The smile on the Empress Dowager's face grew wider as she looked at the confused girl sitting in front of her. Her delicate facial features were pleasing to the eye no matter how she looked at them. She was a good girl. She had thought that there was something wrong with her identity before. Now it seemed that her identity was completely worthy of it. She didn't have to be a bad person anymore. Thinking about the girl's background, she felt that she was really pitiful. At present, she looked cute and likable, and she was so good-looking. Thinking about it, she felt satisfied. Chapter 459. The Empress Dowager had a lot of thoughts in her mind, but she kept smiling and seemed to be in a good mood. Xiao Wanru was at a loss and didn't understand why the Empress Dowager was so kind to her. However, Ruyan Great Elder Princess could tell that the Empress Dowager really liked Xiao Wanru. She was overjoyed and hurriedly asked her to thank the Empress Dowager for the reward. No one would take exchange seriously or not. As for the matter that the Empress Dowager said that she liked Xiao Wanru's jade pendant, no one would think that it was true. Neither Great Elder Princess nor Old Madam had touched this piece of jade in person. Of course, they didn't know that this piece of jade was the rarest warm jade. It was warm all year round and was extremely good for Chu Liuchen's illness. Chu Liuchen was in poor health and seldom appeared in front of others. Even if he occasionally entered the palace to meet the Empress Dowager, he might not meet these two. They didn't know that this jade pendant of warm jade belonged to Chu Liuchen. At this moment, no one thought that this matter had something to do with him. Old Madam frowned and looked at Xiao Wanru. She didn't like the scene in front of her. How nice it would be if her eldest granddaughter was so favored. Originally, in the whole mansion, only her eldest granddaughter was the most outstanding and the one she liked the most. But how could this little granddaughter get the best? Old Madam, you don't like Wanru being liked by the Empress Dowager? When Ruyan Great Elder Princess glanced at Old Madam, she found that her face was not good, so she asked with a cold smile. Why not? It's the blessing of the whole Duke Xing's mansion that Wanru can be liked by the Empress Dowager. Old Madam explained with a smile on her face. Then why did Old Madam frown just now? Great Elder Princess felt that Old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion was uncomfortable, so her words became more and more impolite. Great Elder Princess, why are you so aggressive? What else do you want us to do? No one wanted the thing between Qinghua and eldest brother to happen. Old Madam's eyes turned red and she said aggrievedly. She wiped the corners of her eyes with the handkerchief in her hand. She was implying that Ruyan Great Elder Princess was making trouble out of nothing by focusing on the past. Xiao Wanru lowered her head, and a trace of sarcasm flashed across her face. Even her grandmother would pretend to be pitiful in front of the Empress Dowager. Well, Ruyan, you really can't blame anyone for this. No one wanted it to happen. Forget it, let it pass. Now that you see your lovely granddaughter and grandson, you don't need to care about these things anymore. Otherwise, how can these two children live with themselves? The Empress Dowager couldn't stand it anymore and persuaded. Great Elder Princess still wanted to say something, but Xiao Wanru reached out to pull her sleeve. You can go back first. Xiao Xuanzi winked at the palace maid. The palace maid stepped aside and then left. She even closed the side door on the side when she left. So Chu Luchen had already waited for her here. Xiao Wanru said helplessly. Xiao Wanru said helplessly. Come and drink tea. Imperial grandmother doesn't have much of this kind of tea. I heard that it was planted in the back mountain of the Yuhui nunnery. It is said that this tea has the fragrance of Buddha and is very nourishing. Chu Luchen personally poured a cup of tea for Xiao Wanru and pushed it in front of her. Xiao Wanru had no choice but to come over and sit down. She picked up the tea and took a sip. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. The taste of the tea was not strong, with a very light fragrance, which seemed to be a little lighter than ordinary tea. The tea Xiao Wanru used to use was mainly light, and she didn't use much. She just put a few pieces of tea in it, and it was better to see the light green on the tea. The taste was very suitable for her. It was light at the first taste, but mellow after the aftertaste. There is this kind of tea in the back mountain of the Yuhui nunnery. Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered twice, and she raised her eyes and asked in surprise. In her last life, she only knew that Xiao Yenru once lived in the Yuhui nunnery and learned painting, and then she heard that Rui, a great elder princess, became a monk there. The Yuhui nunnery is not an ordinary nunnery. Although it can't be compared with the Huaguang temple and can be regarded as a royal temple, it is not ordinary. If the emperor died, the S in the imperial harem would all be sent to the Yuhui nunnery. In the past, there were precedents of princesses becoming monks in the Yuhui nunnery. Chu Luchen picked up the teacup in front of him, took a sip, and put it down. He was in poor health, so he also drank this kind of light tea and liked it. Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said with her face changing slightly, "Are there also S in the imperial harem of the former emperor in the Yuhui nunnery?" Of course. Although there were not many S in the past, there were still a few of them. They were all sent to the Yuhui nunnery, but it is a little different from the residence of the real nuns. Chu Luchen lowered his head, and the black eyelashes on his pale and handsome face blinked. Then he slowly raised his head and narrowed his eyes slightly. His words were very calm, as if he was talking about someone else's business. Xiao Wanru knew that the so-called S in the imperial harem were originally his father's S. She heard that his mother died of depression after his father died of illness. She was afraid that he would feel sad when mentioning this kind of thing. However, when he said this, he forcefully changed the topic, which seemed to be much more deliberate. Is the Yuhui nunnery big? Xiao Wanru thought for a moment, turned the exquisite teacup in her hand, and asked. Big. The entire Donghua mountain is included in the nunnery. Chu Luchen raised his eyes, and there was a flickering light in his long and narrow eyes, which looked a little gloomy and deep. The picturesque handsome young man looked a little evil at this time. Is there anything in it that you want, Your Highness? Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said bluntly. She slowly put down the cup in her hand and sat up straight with her slender body. Since they were talking about business, of course, she had to listen carefully. Yes. Chu Luchen smiled and curled his pale lips. The corners of his lips were very light, and his light color always made people feel that he was weak. However, this kind of lip color matched him very well. There was a kind of extreme delicacy and handsomeness that was out of this world, as if such a person could only appear in a painting. Of course, Xiao Wanru, who had fought with Chu Luchen several times, did not think that he was really otherworldly. He was deceiving others with his gentle appearance. The color was light, but the toxicity was strong. Of course, Xiao Wanru did not dare to ignore his words. After thinking for a moment, she asked anxiously, Your Highness, what do you want? If I have a chance, I will find it for you. She did not dare to easily agree to get it, and she did not know what good thing it was that made Chu Luchen so obsessed. Find a person for me. Chu Luchen supported his chin with his hand and said leisurely. A nun in the Yuhui nunnery? Or in who is locked up? Qin Wanru asked more and more cautiously. It was obvious that this matter was difficult, otherwise it would not be her turn. The S who are locked up are all in the same place. There is a wall separating it from the Yuhui nunnery, which is equivalent to separating several gardens in the Yuhui nunnery. The door facing the Yuhui nunnery is closed, and the key is naturally in the hands of the nunnery master. You have to find a way to go in once and find a named Shurong. I want to ask something about what happened in the past. Xiao Wanru was flustered. She bit her lip and complained secretly in her heart, but she had to agree, Your Highness, rest assured. If there is a chance, I will definitely find her. This kind of thing was obviously not a good thing, and it might even be related to Chu Liuchen's big event. You go to the Yuhui nunnery with Nanny Zheng. She knows the name Shurong. You only need to take 2 servant girls with you. As for the others, you don't need to take them with you. Mingqiu Nun happens to be there, and she will take care of you there. Chu Liuchen seemed to have prepared everything for her, which made Xiao Wanru more and more speechless. Your Highness, have you long thought that I would go to the Yuhui nunnery? If you want to leave Duke Xing's mansion, the Yuhui nunnery is indeed a good place, but you have to pay attention to one person. Who? Xiao Wanru's heart tightened, and she asked with her watery eyes wide open. Chapter 460. The sudden change in his words made Xiao Wanru unable to keep up with him for a while. She reached out and took out the jade pendant given by the Empress Dowager from her sleeve slowly. The Empress Dowager exchanged it. She reached out and handed the jade pendant to Chu Liuchen. The previous jade pendant belonged to him, and now the so-called exchanged jade pendant belonged to him. My jade pendant is not this one. Chu Liuchen narrowed his eyes slightly with a hint of danger. It seemed that he was not very happy. The Empress Dowager said that she liked the previous one, Your Highness. Xiao Wanru said helplessly. She didn't understand what the grandfather and grandson were doing. She rolled her watery eyes slightly and squinted at Chu Liuchen. She didn't believe that Chu Liuchen didn't know that the Empress Dowager would exchange the jade pendant. Did he expect this to happen when he asked her to wear it all the time? My jade pendant was given to you, but you lost it and got such a jade pendant. Do you think I should punish you? Chu Liuchen shook the teacup in his hand, looked at the tea in it rippling slightly, and said casually. Xiao Wanru was scared and asked obediently, Your Highness, what do you want? Even if it was a trap, she had to jump into it. Since Imperial Grandmother gave this jade pendant to you, don't lose it in the future. This jade pendant is used by Imperial Grandmother to find a wife for me. Chu Liuchen suddenly laughed in an extremely lazy and complacent manner. He put down the cup in his hand and leaned back with a sense of comfort and laziness. Although his face was pale, he was lively without the gloomy elements deep in his heart. Chu Liuchen was indeed as beautiful as an elegant young man coming out of a painting. Xiao Wanru's hand trembled and she almost dropped the jade pendant. She hurriedly reached out and held it tightly. What does the Empress Dowager mean? She felt a little uneasy. It was one thing to make an agreement with Chu Liuchen, but it was another thing to be seen by the Empress Dowager and be given a jade pendant. She felt guilty as if she had been caught by an elder. Imperial Grandmother naturally means that she recognizes you. Although she hasn't made an official engagement with you now, it can be considered as a matter of fact. Your Highness, this isn't very good, is it? Xiao Wanru held the jade pendant in her hand hesitantly and wanted to send it back. However, she remembered that the jade pendant was given by the Empress Dowager. Even if she wanted to return it, she had to return it to the Empress Dowager. Why not? Chu Liuchen squinted at her with an unfriendly look. I'm going to the nunnery to observe mourning for my biological parents for 3 years. If your highness doesn't like anyone else in these 3 years, it's not good to give this jade pendant to me first. Xiao Wanru said as she chose her words. She frowned slightly and looked a little pitiful. You've been in the nunnery for 3 years, and you're not locked up. If you want to go out for a walk, you can. If the weather is good, you can go out and enjoy the scenery. If I'm free, I can also go to your place. I heard that there's a peach forest behind the Yuhui nunnery, which is very elegant. If I'm free, I'll come to enjoy the scenery and visit you. Xiao Wanru looked at Chu Liuchen in astonishment. What did he take the Yuhui nunnery for? Back garden. He still had time to go out for a walk and visit her. Your Highness, it's better for you to stay in the capital city. There are only nuns in the Yuhui nunnery, which is inconvenient. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and said implicitly. Why? You don't want to see me? Chu Liuchen's face darkened and he was unhappy. How could I? It's just that it's a nunnery. Xiao Wanru felt that her reminder was clear enough. There were only women in the nunnery. Why did he, a man, come to the nunnery? I'm not in good health. Mingxiu nun in the Yuhui nunnery has excellent medical skills. Imperial grandmother has allowed her to treat me. A lazy smile appeared on Chu Liuchen's face again. He sat up straight and elegantly poured a cup of tea for himself. Then he looked up and asked Xiao Wanru, do you want it? Thank you, Your Highness. I have it. Looking at the tea in her teacup, Xiao Wanru said helplessly. She put the jade pendant on the table and said, Your Highness, what about this jade pendant? It's given to you, so it's naturally yours. Do you want me to return the jade pendant? Since I've expressed my love for you, I won't go back on my words and ask for the jade pendant given to you by Imperial Grandmother. Chu Liuchen reached out to take the jade pendant and looked at it. He shook it in his hand with satisfaction and then pushed it back to Xiao Wanru. This is the jade pendant for this prince's consort. Your Highness, don't you think it's a little inappropriate? Xiao Wanru said with a frown. It's okay. Although you look so small and seem to be of little use, you're more useful than others. Chu Liuchen looked her up and down in disgust and said. His words made Xiao Wanru speechless. After a moment of silence, she carefully put the jade pendant in her sleeve. Since she had promised Chu Liuchen before, she had to cooperate no matter what Chu Liuchen did. Although it was a little early to let the Empress Dowager know, she thought that Chu Liuchen might really be forced to marry by the Empress Dowager. The news that the Empress Dowager was going to choose concubines for these princes had been widely spread. Then I'll keep it for you, Your Highness. If you need it, just ask me for it. After thinking for a while, she felt that it was better to make it more clear, lest Chu Liuchen would have a crush on someone else, and many things would happen in a short time. It was better to say it here, which was simple and clear. Okay, if I want it, just ask you for it. Chu Liuchen waved his hand impatiently and didn't want to talk about the jade pendant at all. Seeing her carefully put away the jade pendant, with a look of, I'll keep it for you first and give it to someone else when there is another suitable one, Chu Liuchen felt sullen in his heart. He was in a very bad mood. Since he was unhappy, he looked a little unfriendly. He stared at Xiao Wanru and asked, Tell me what happened in your mansion yesterday. After the guard went back, he repeated what had happened to him. It should be someone who wanted to plot against me and ruin my reputation. Since no one saw the face of the woman in the pavilion, they could guess that it was me when they saw the same clothes. In addition, the water came to me and I had taken a bath and changed my clothes. It must be me even if it wasn't me. I can't explain it clearly. Xiao Wanru fluttered her long eyelashes twice and said with a bit of a deep voice. Duke Xing's mansion can't tolerate you so much? Chu Liuchen asked slowly, didn't they say that they are your blood relatives? Could it be that there's some kind of blood feud involved? His words made Xiao Wanru's heart skip a beat. After thinking for a while, she said with a little distress, Your Highness, if I help and take the position of heir of Duke Xing's mansion, do you think it can be regarded as a blood feud? She still had some doubts about something, so she couldn't help asking Chu Liuchen at this time. Was it really just because of the position of heir of Duke Xing? In her last life, something had happened to and she had also been plotted against by Duke Xing's mother and daughter. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Chu Liuchen suddenly laughed. His voice was very pleasant but very cold. It seemed that something had fiercely scratched Xiao Wanru's heart and made her weak defense suddenly break. Her fingers trembled slightly, and then she held the teacup beside her hand and took 2 big gulps of tea. Because she was in a hurry, she choked. For a moment, she turned her head sideways and coughed loudly. The water she had just drunk was also choked, and tears flowed down her face. A white handkerchief with a light grid suddenly appeared in front of her. She coughed hard again, raised her misty eyes, and looked along the handkerchief to Chu Liuchen's hand and then Chu Liuchen's. Chu Liuchen seemed to find her reaction extremely interesting. He smiled, stuffed the handkerchief in his hand into Xiao Wanru's hand, and then said lazily, "Have you guessed it? Or have you thought about it for a long time?" If she hadn't guessed it for a long time, she wouldn't have such a big reaction. Xiao Wanru lowered her eyes, and her long eyelashes lay tiredly on her pale face. She sighed and said directly, "I guessed it before." "Then go and find out. No matter who it is, it's a matter of course to pay for a debt of blood." Chu Liuchen seemed to be very satisfied with her straightforwardness. He slightly raised his beautiful eyes with a bit of warmth different from the past, but his words still made people feel cold in their hearts. But at this moment, his words touched Xiao Wanru's heart. "Your Highness, can I borrow a few people from you?" Xiao Wanru held the handkerchief in her hand, looked up at him and said. "What do you mean?" Chu Liuchen asked gently. "I want to send someone to investigate what happened in those years and find out everything about my father and mother after they left," Xiao Wanru said with a serious face. "So what if you find out? Aren't you afraid?" Chu Liuchen asked with interest. "I'm not afraid. If I find out that someone really killed my parents, I will naturally pay for it," Xiao Wanru said very calmly, but there was a bloodthirsty killing intent in her beautiful eyes, which was clearly shown in front of Chu Liuchen. She, who had crawled back from the bloody hell, had nothing to fear. She would not say this in front of others, but she felt that there was nothing she could not say to Chu Liuchen. He looked sick and weak, but in fact, he was the most ruthless and bloodthirsty. More than half of the people in the imperial palace had been killed by him, and they were all beautiful women. "You want to go against the whole Duke Xing's mansion? Do you know how many of them are your relatives now?" Chu Liuchen looked at her and asked with a faint smile. "My relatives are not from Duke Xing's mansion," Xiao Wanru said contemptuously. Her contemptuous look of disdain for all the etiquette was extremely inconsistent with the norm and could even be said to challenge all the etiquette. Bloodline had always represented kinship and also represented the most standard interest combination. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of soft applause came from Chu Liuchen's hands, which also pulled Xiao Wanru back to her senses. She looked up at Chu Liuchen's handsome and elegant face, wondering what he was doing. "Zhuozhuo, you're right. The so-called kinship and bloodline are actually nothing. If he wants to hurt you, he will not be restrained by the bloodline. In this case, why do you care too much about the so-called bloodline and kinship?" His cold words seemed to come from hell. Coupled with the gentle smile on his face, it made people's hearts tremble inexplicably, as if something had been released. Yujie had always been very bold, but at this time, she couldn't help hiding behind Xiao Wanru. Chapter 461. Chu Liuchen chuckled meaningfully. "Thank you, Your Highness." Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed deeply to Chu Liuchen respectfully. Chu Liuchen waved his hand elegantly, reached out to point at a seat, and motioned for her to sit down. He said very casually, "Our current relationship can be considered to be an open one. Helping you is equivalent to helping me. I won't care about this. But..." He didn't continue his words. Xiao Wanru held the handkerchief in her hand, and her heart was in her throat, waiting for the crucial turning point. "I heard that Duke Xing has a good temper and is rarely angry. Even if he can't handle something, he will at most turn around and leave. He has always had a good reputation in the imperial court. In fact, I find it quite strange. Is Duke Xing's temper so good? Did he get angry last night?" Chu Liuchen said with a leisurely smile. Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said honestly, "He got angry last night. I can see that he was very angry." "Did he do it?" Chu Liuchen said with a smile. "No, he didn't do it. Xiao Wanru said bluntly, and then added, at least he didn't do it when I left. This kind of thing is a disgrace to the entire Duke Xing's mansion. Moreover, so many people saw it, and it almost pointed at Madame of Duke Xing, but Duke Xing didn't get angry. If he is not really a very good-tempered person, he must have other intentions. Chu Luqian stretched out his slender fingers, gently knocked on the table twice, and said lazily. Xiao Wanru understood what he meant. He was either a loyal or a traitor. She had thought about it carefully. After her rebirth, some things became clear, and she also saw it more thoroughly. It was said that her current second uncle, Duke Xing, was a good-tempered person, and he also looked like a good-tempered person. He was round and smiled before saying anything. However, there were many people in the world who didn't match their appearance, just like Prince Chen in front of her. If she was confused by his sickly appearance, she wouldn't even know how she died. This elegant and sick Prince Chen waved his hand, and the palace had already been flooded with blood. Those powerful opponents and their subjects all fell at his feet. In the last life, she had never met Duke Xing, but there were rumors everywhere that Duke Xing had a good temper and got along well with Madame of Duke Xing. Many misses from aristocratic families thought that it was not necessary to marry a good man or a handsome man. It was enough to marry someone like Duke Xing. Needless to say, Madame of Duke Xing had a sweet face but a bitter heart. But Duke Xing was so compatible with her. Was it really because he had a good temper that he tolerated everything? If that was really the case, she would also look down on him. Tolerating great evildoers was no different from great evildoers. What's more, this second uncle of hers always felt that he wasn't simple. His so-called good reputation was just for show. What he was after was not small, right? He should have other plans. Xiao Wanru didn't hide it and spoke out her thoughts with a serious face. If you go back to Duke Xing's mansion, find out for me who is behind him. Chu Luqian leaned back comfortably and said casually. Your Highness, who do you think he has turned to? Xiao Wanru couldn't help asking. Since he said so, he must have some evidence. I'm not sure for the time being. Since you are my subordinate, find out this matter for me. Chu Luqian was happy to see Xiao Wanru worry about this. I'm afraid you have to wait for 3 years. Xiao Wanru hesitated for a moment and said. I can wait for 3 years. Chu Luqian raised his eyebrows and smiled, seeming to be in a good mood. You don't have to worry. Deal with the matter in the Yuhui nunnery first. You should pay attention to Pushun Nun, Xiao Yenru's painting teacher in the Yuhui nunnery. What's wrong with her? You should be careful about the specific problem. Don't feel that you can't bear it after a few days. What's more, your big sister is also in the Yuhui nunnery now. She is not a quiet person. Chu Luqian said meaningfully. It was not easy for Xiao Wanru to answer. Restless in the Yuhui nunnery? Did he mean what he thought he meant? I'm also tired. You can go shopping by yourself. Chu Luqian supported his head with one hand and closed his eyes slightly. Yes, Your Highness. Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed to him respectfully. Then she turned around and left. Yujie followed her closely. After a few steps, she suddenly found that she was still holding Chu Liuqian's handkerchief in her hand, so she hurriedly turned around. In front of the table, Chu Luqian lowered his head slightly with a pale face. He supported his forehead with one hand and covered his face with the wide sleeve of his robe. He seemed to be dozing off. Xiao Wanru suddenly felt that something was wrong. His hand, which supported his head, was trembling slightly. She hurriedly took a step forward and held his hand. Following her gesture, Chu Liuqian's body softened. Xiao Wanru hurriedly reached out to hold him and involuntarily sat on the ground. Before she sat up, she had taken the opportunity to put her hand on the pulse of his right hand. She only felt that his skin was as white as snow, and his face was so pale that there was almost no trace of blood. Just now, he sat here with a faint smile. Although he was also pale, he was not as pale and haggard as he was now, as if he was a jade figure made of ice and snow. Master! Xiao Xuanzi screamed and rushed over. Yujie grabbed him and said, "Don't move. Let my miss feel the pulse for the prince. Our master's old illness recurred." What can we do? We have to go back to the mansion." Xiao Xuanzi was so anxious that cold sweat came down from his forehead. "Is there no imperial physician in the palace? Why do you have to go back to your own mansion?" Yujie asked casually while watching Xiao Wanru feel the pulse. "You don't understand. These imperial physicians in the palace can't cure our master, and the medicine they prescribe is not reasonable. Only those in our mansion can cure him." Xiao Xuanzi stamped his feet anxiously and suddenly grabbed Yujie. "You take care of our master here first. I'll report to the Empress Dowager, and then find a soft couch to carry him back to the mansion." "Okay." Yujie nodded and agreed. Xiao Xuanzi left in a hurry to report to the Empress Dowager. After feeling the pulse, Xiao Wanru looked extremely pale and felt a little strange, but she did not dare to show it at this time. She helped Chu Luchen to get up, and Yujie hurriedly reached out to help her. The two of them helped him up again with difficulty. At this time, Xiao Xuanzi had finished reporting and brought a soft couch over. The Empress Dowager had no time to talk with Rui, and great elder princess and old madam, and also hurried over. When they carried Chu Luchen to the soft couch and were about to carry him away, they found that Chu Liuchen's hand was tightly holding Xiao Wanru's hand. The Empress Dowager asked the palace maids and old maids to pull him a few times, but they failed, so she asked Xiao Xuanzi to take Xiao Wanru with him. They went directly from the palace to Chu Liuchen's Prince Chen's mansion through the small side door. Looking at Chu Liuchen's face and thinking of the pulse she had just felt, Xiao Wanru did not hesitate and directly followed the soft couch to Prince Chen's mansion. They walked very fast along the small path. But even so, Xiao Xuanzi was so anxious that his forehead was covered with sweat, and he kept shouting to hurry up. The side door had already been opened. Xiao Wanru's eyes flickered slightly when she saw two palace maids guarding at the side door. It was usually the old maids in the palace who guarded the door. Why would they send two young and beautiful palace maids to guard it? After the soft couch entered the door, there was a semi-reclining wheelchair that was flattened into a soft couch. Chu Luchen was put on the flat soft couch wheelchair, and Xiao Xuanzi pushed him to the mansion in a hurry. After turning a few intersections skillfully, they came to the door of a remote courtyard. Yujie went up and pushed the door. Xiao Xuanzi pushed Chu Luchen in and said loudly, Dr. Qi, come here. I fainted again." The door in the middle of the room was pushed open, and a tall middle-aged man in a white cloth coat appeared at the door. Hearing Xiao Xuanzi's words, he hurriedly walked down, glanced at Chu Luchen, whose face was pale, and said, "Carry him in." Xiao Xuanzi nodded and pushed him to the front of the steps. Then he picked up the soft couch, which was much larger than his body, and carried it directly into the room. Xiao Wanru was dragged in. When they got inside, Dr. Qi had turned around and taken out a brown jade bottle. He poured 2 pills into Chu Liuchen's mouth. Xiao Xuanzi raised Chu Liuchen's head slightly. Although one of Xiao Wanru's hands was pulled, the other hand could still reach the table on the side. There were teapots and teacups on the table. She took one and poured a cup of water into it. The water was just warm. 2 small pills were sent into Chu Liuchen's mouth. She also fed him the cup of warm water carefully, and then put it down and wiped his mouth with a handkerchief. Xiao Xuanzi put Chu Luchen down. Dr. Qi reached out to feel his pulse, and his face was very pale. After a long while, he raised his head, looked at Xiao Xuanzi, and said, "Your Highness, didn't you take the medicine this morning?" Xiao Xuanzi lowered his head when he heard this question. "How can you always be like this? Your Highness, you don't take your body as your body at all. Even if it is an ordinary disease, he will treat it as a serious disease. What's more, his disease is a fetus toxin." Dr. Qi said angrily, "If it continues, I won't treat him." "Your Highness, you can do whatever you want. Even the patient doesn't want to recover. Who else can save him?" Dr. Qi scratched his hair impatiently. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly understood where her strange feeling came from. After feeling his pulse just now, she sensed his weakness. He was very weak, even weaker than the previous times, as if his body had not been properly treated with medicine at all. He didn't want to live. He had nothing to live for. Or the future crown prince's will to live was so weak. Her heart inexplicably twitched fiercely. Dr. Qi, I really forgot this time. My master was in a hurry to go to the palace, Xiao Xuanzi was sweating as he explained. It was obvious that he was very guilty at first glance. Suddenly, he saw Xiao Wanru, who was surprised, and immediately reached out to point at her and said, My master was in a hurry to find the fifth miss, so he forgot to take the medicine. Please forgive him, Dr. Qi. Chapter 462. It's true, Dr. Qi. It's true this time. This is our future Princess Chen. She was framed and is going to become a nun. Xiao Xuanzi explained eagerly. Xiao Wanru's face immediately turned red. Although it was true, why did his words sound so strange? What nonsense are you talking about? Who is going to become a nun? Our miss is going to the nunnery to observe mourning for the heir and the infanta. Yu Jie was also anxious and argued loudly. Yes, go to the nunnery to observe mourning. That's what I mean. Xiao Xuanzi nodded repeatedly and said yes. Dr. Qi was dubious. He looked at Chu Luchen, who still hadn't woken up, and then looked at Xiao Wanru, who was young but extremely beautiful. He sighed and said, Your prince is really a man who loves beauty more than his life. Dr. Qi, what are you talking about? She is the future princess our Empress Dowager has arranged for our master. Who will care about her if our master doesn't care about her? Xiao Xuanzi said with a flattering smile. Well, he can't be like before in the future. Dr. Qi looked at Xiao Xuanzi's lazy face helplessly. Of course. No one can go against his own life, right? Our master has figured it out recently. You see, after returning to the capital city recently, his medicine has become much more normal. He basically takes medicine every day. He doesn't feel useless and even refuses to take medicine when he loses his temper like before. Xiao Xuanzi nodded. He bent down and said flatteringly. In terms of medicine, the prince is a little more conscious than before. Dr. Qi said, and then waved his hand impatiently, Help your master go back to have a rest first. I will boil some medicine for him later. Tell him to take it well this time. Otherwise, he can't even keep his life now, let alone in the future. Yes, how can he not keep his life well? He can live one day at a time. After all, it's his own life, right? Xiao Xuanzi nodded repeatedly, but his smile was extremely bitter. Thinking of Chu Liuchen's illness and hearing Xiao Xuanzi's words, Xiao Wanru's heart also became heavy. The blush on her face slowly faded, and she sighed secretly. Was this illness really incurable? How long had he lived after her death in her previous life? However, the last time she saw him in her previous life, he seemed to be alive and well. Although his lips were paler than the average person's, it was only slightly pale. He had a kind of sickly handsomeness, but he didn't really look weak. He ran down the stairs with big steps and looked very strong. Her heart suddenly trembled fiercely, and her watery eyes were filled with horror. Why did she suddenly remember that he was running down at that time? The last scene she saw should be him standing on the high steps, right? Why would he suddenly have such an idea? Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her heart, as if something had pulled it hard. She stretched out the hand that wasn't being held and subconsciously covered her chest. Miss. Yu Jie saw her abnormality and called her in a low voice. She let go of her hand and shook it gently, indicating that she was fine. Then she helped Xiao Xuanzi push the soft couch made of the wheelchair out. The two old maids from the imperial palace who had come to help before had already come in at this time. They also helped to carry Chu Luchen out of the room steadily. You can go back to the imperial palace first. After Chu Luchen was put down, Xiao Xuanzi carefully checked him, and then waved his hand and said, "You can go back to the imperial palace first." The two nannies who followed from the imperial palace bowed to Chu Luchen and left respectfully. When they arrived at the side door connecting Prince Chen's mansion and the imperial palace, they also carried the soft couch before and went back to the imperial palace to report to the Empress Dowager. "Fifth Miss, come with me," Xiao Xuanzi said as he pushed Chu Luchen. The wheelchair was now lying down, and it was very long. Yujie helped in the front, in case the back pushed the wheelchair in the wrong direction and it hit the corner. Xiao Wanru nodded. She really couldn't leave at this time. Chu Liuchen's hand was still tightly holding her wrist, and he didn't intend to let go at this time. "Your Highness doesn't like to take medicine?" Xiao Wanru asked casually after taking a few steps. "I don't like to take medicine. When I was in Jiangzhou, Fifth Miss also saw that he always took medicine day by day. Sometimes he especially didn't want to take it and said that it was useless anyway." Xiao Xuanzi's voice became low, and his face was very ugly. He said as he walked. "So we just let him waste his body like this?" Xiao Wanru bit her lip and said. "Who can control our master?" In the past, he lived alone in the prince's mansion, and he was the only master in the whole mansion. If he didn't want to take the medicine, no one could control him. Occasionally, when Dr. Qi was angry and wanted to leave, he would listen to him and take the medicine. After entering the imperial palace, he didn't allow us to tell the Empress Dowager about it. Xiao Xuanzi's voice dimmed, and he almost said weakly. He was alone, and his father and mother died. From this point of view, he was really similar to Chu Luchen. Because he was alone, when he was in a bad mood, he would waste his body. His body was originally so poor. It could be imagined that if it went on like this, there would be no cure for him. Her watery eyes fell slightly on the face of the handsome young man who seemed to come out of a painting, and she inexplicably sympathized with him in the same boat. Even if he was doted on by everyone in the world, so what? He had no father or mother, which was destined to be a lonely child. He lost his father before he was born, and he lost his mother soon after he was born. At that time, he was still a baby in swaddling clothes. In this way, he seemed to be more pitiful than her. Madame of Duke Xing wanted to hurt her, and no one in Duke Xing's mansion liked her, but Chu Luchen seemed to be in a more difficult situation than her. In the imperial family, except for the Empress Dowager who truly loved him, even the emperor's love for him had some other meaning. As for his cousins, they were all like black-eyed chickens, thinking of ways to take his life. Even if they didn't directly take his life, they still wanted to take his life to create an opportunity for them. They wanted to pave the way for them with his life. In such a situation, if he didn't want to die, he could only rise up. In the last life, he could break out of the encirclement, and he was alone and helpless. It could be seen that he was not simple. He was also a pitiful person. Did he really faint again because of illness? Chu Liuzhou sat in the main hall of the Empress, with only two trusted subordinates standing around. Hearing the news just now, he patted the table and said with joy, "This time, it has nothing to do with me. It happened in Imperial Grandmother's palace, and it has something to do with Duke Xing's mansion and Rui, and Great Elder Princess. Did the Empress Dowager really marry the new fifth Miss Xiao for him?" The Empress paid attention to another direction and frowned tightly. The news was guessed, and many palace servants saw the jade pendant given by the Empress Dowager. "Mother, no matter who he married, does it matter? Can he live until he gets married?" Although Imperial Grandmother gave him the jade pendant, didn't the fifth Miss Xiao say that she would go to the nunnery to observe mourning for her biological mother? 3 years of filial piety. After 3 years, it's uncertain whether this patient can still live or not. You see, he also knows his illness, so he doesn't want to live from time to time and make such a scene. Chu Luchen used to have such things happen in the palace. At first, the imperial physicians didn't know it, and they were very anxious. But later, they gradually knew that Prince Chen didn't want to live at all, so he made such a scene. Some people felt pity for him, some lamented, and some felt sorry for him. They all said that Prince Chen was unparalleled handsome, but his fate was full of twists and turns. They were afraid that he was a man without luck. He almost became the crown prince, but he was so close. Since he was born, he had been sick. Even if he wanted to save his life, he might not be able to do it. You're right. The Empress breathed a sigh of relief. Not to mention whether Xiao Wanru could marry into Prince Chen's mansion, she was not favored in Duke Xing's mansion. Even if she really had a chance to marry into Prince Chen's mansion in the future, she would not be a concern. Duke Xing's mansion would not stand on Prince Chen's mansion's side for her. Mother, we don't need to pay more attention to this patient who sometimes loses his temper and seeks death. I think we don't need to pay more attention to him. I'm just afraid that someone will kill him and hurt us. Just pay more attention to him and don't let him get too close to me. But Chu Luyue has been very active recently. Chu Liuzhou sneered and slammed his hand on the table. It has always been to establish the legitimate son. What do you mean by establishing the eldest son? He is just the eldest son of a concubine. Does he really think that he is noble? Thinking that someone in the imperial court said so, Chu Liuzhou became angry and a bit of hostility appeared in his eyes. Not only Chu Luyue, but also Prince Cheng. You should also pay attention to him. The Empress saw further and reminded her son. Mother, you worry too much. Prince Cheng is still unwilling to get married. What else can he think? Even if he fights for the world, so what? If he doesn't get married, he won't even have children. You don't see how hard he is trying to get rid of the marriage bestowed by father. It seems that he is really going to become a monk. Chu Liuzhou waved his hand disapprovingly. He thought of the various misses from aristocratic families he saw in Prince Cheng's mansion that day. They not only failed to attract Prince Cheng's attention, but also made him avoid them like a tiger. He even used the shameless daughter of Ningyuan army general's mansion as an excuse to escape. Was marriage so difficult to solve? Wasn't it a good thing? Not only could he marry a beautiful woman he liked, but he could also get the support of the beautiful woman's family. Reaching out to pinch his chin, Chu Liuzhou felt that he must choose the most suitable one. Prince Cheng didn't want it, but he wanted it. Not only did he want it, but he also wanted to choose a few more. Who would complain about having too much help? Prince Cheng is not simple. Zhou, don't take it lightly. If he really has no desire, why did he sneak to the capital city that day? On such a busy day, shouldn't he be calmly guarding the Buddha statue and reciting more sutras? Why did he sneak down the mountain? Also, you said that he has no children. It's not easy to have children. He is not much older than you. He can directly take in 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. It doesn't matter how many children he wants. Seeing Chu Liuzhou's indifferent look, the Empress's face became more and more serious. She thought about the matter of Prince Cheng several times and became more vigilant. It's true. Mother, I'll send more people to keep an eye on him. Does he really want to wait until father dies and let him inherit the throne? He doesn't know whether he is as capable as father. Chu Liuzhou sneered. It was a joke to say that an elder brother could have children. Father didn't need a younger brother since he had so many sons. Don't think so much. Come and see which family you like. These are the candidates I have chosen for you. Seeing that her son had taken it seriously, the Empress didn't say anything more. It was not urgent. She took out a stack of paintings and handed them to him. Now the first thing to think about was her son's marriage. Chapter 463. Choose a good marriage, which will be of great benefit to your highness. Today, the Empress Dowager gave the 5th Miss of Xiao's mansion a jade pendant and heard that Prince Chen was in the side hall. She also asked them to meet. Maybe the 5th Miss Xiao was engaged to Prince Chen. Then it will be the turn of the other masters. Your Highness, have a look. This is the information of the misses to be married from each mansion that I have sorted out for you. You can choose carefully. In Chu Liuyue's Prince Yu's mansion, Mr. Lu, who was sitting opposite Chu Liyue, asked Xiao Qizi to send him a stack of information. There were no portraits, but Chu Liyue had basically seen most of them. Even if he had not seen them before, there were rumors outside. He also sent the information about the rumors to Chu Liyue. It was extremely important for Chu Liyue to choose a suitable wife. Chu Liyue flipped through a few casually and put them down without much interest. There was incense burning in the room, and the curling fragrance spread into the whole space of the room with the wind blowing through the window. It was very light and elegant. Mixed cabbage, flowing left and right. I can't ask for more. Chu Liyue sighed in a low voice, walked to the window with his hands clasped behind his back, looked at the scenery outside the window, and began to ponder. Mr. Lu smiled and waved his hand to let Xiao Qizi leave. Then he said, Your Highness, if you sit in that position, all kinds of women will be useless to you. Why do you care about a woman? Moreover, I think this first miss doesn't have much feelings for you. Mr. Lu, you have gone too far. She is just a girl in the boudoir. Chu Liyue frowned unhappily, turned around, walked to the table, and sat down again with an unhappy look. Yes, you are right. I was wrong. But do you think it is a good time to marry this first miss? Not to mention that first Miss Xiao has not said that she likes you, even Duke Xing's mansion has not officially said that they like you. It is not good for you to give the position of the legal wife to someone who does not like you very much. Mr. Lu smiled good-naturedly, but he secretly despised her in his heart. In Sir Lu's view, this eldest Miss Xiao was a scheming person. On one hand, she appeared to be polite and kept a distance from his prince, but on the other hand, she hinted at everything and exchanged letters. She seemed to be shy before she said anything. At first glance, it was obvious that she was deliberately seducing his prince, but she did not give him a definite answer. He was not Chu Liyue. Although he had opened a mansion, he was still a teenager and had seen few women. It was reasonable for him to be bewitched by a moment of passion. This kind of hesitant and welcoming attitude was most common in the brothels. She refused to let go, but she refused to tell the truth. She kept hanging in front of others. She was a fickle woman. In addition, Duke Xing's attitude had been unclear. It seemed that he was hesitating and seemed to have something else in mind. Mr. Lu didn't know what exactly it was, so he could only observe slowly. Chu Liyue picked up the documents at hand and looked at another one. His face calmed down and he nodded. You're right. Let's pick a few of them first. Imperial grandmother will probably choose a princess for us. We can put Miss Xiao's matter aside for now, but we can't let Chu Liuzhou choose her. He could not marry Xiao Yanru now, but he could not let her marry into Prince Zhou's mansion. Don't worry, Your Highness. Although the Empress also likes Duke Xing's family background, she has her own family to take care of. She has several nieces who are good and should be selected this time. It is necessary to choose a princess to maintain the glory of the Empress's family. Miss Xiao's reputation is really good. If she can't be the princess, the main wife can't suppress her. Mr. Lu said calmly. It was not just a superficial meaning. In his opinion, no mansion would be in chaos if Xiao Yanru married her. She didn't want to show any substantial power, but wanted to occupy a high position. If she married her as the main wife, she didn't have the intention to help others wholeheartedly. If she married her as a concubine, she would want to move up. In the end, her family would be in chaos. Moreover, she would fish for fame like those scholars. She was really not a good candidate for marriage. Chu Liyue nodded repeatedly and breathed a sigh of relief. Although he was reluctant to leave Xiao Yanru, he didn't have to marry her now. As long as she wanted to, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. Then everything will be as Mr. Lu said. Let's choose her first. Chu Luiyue picked up another piece of information and carefully reviewed it this time. When Xiao Wanru left, she walked through the gate of Prince Chen's mansion and used Chu Liuchen's carriage to send her to Rui and Great Elder Princess's mansion. However, she was stopped in front of Great Elder Princess's mansion. "Fifth Miss, old madam is waiting for you." An old maid stood respectfully in front of the carriage and said, "Let's go down and have a look." Xiao Wanru immediately understood who the so-called old madam was. She immediately got off the carriage with the help of Yujie. As expected, she saw a carriage of Duke Xing's mansion parked on the side of the road. She slightly raised the corner of her mouth and showed a trace of sarcasm. Then she restrained her expression and walked over slowly. "Come up and have a talk." Before she could salute, a cold voice came from the carriage. A servant girl had already come over and set up a small stool. Xiao Wanru got off the carriage with the help of Yujie. The curtain of the carriage was lifted to one side. Xiao Wanru saw old madam sitting high in the carriage. She looked at Xiao Wanru coldly with a gloomy face. Xiao Wanru went in and bowed to old madam. "Sit down first. You don't have to be so polite in the carriage." Old madam said coldly. "Yes." Xiao Wanru sat down obediently and then lowered her head, waiting for old madam to speak. Old madam was quite satisfied with Xiao Wanru's obedient behavior. "You are a miss of our Duke Xing's mansion, not a member of Great Elder Princess's mansion. If you really live in Great Elder Princess's mansion, some words will be easy to say, but not pleasant to hear. It will even affect the reputation of Great Elder Princess and Duke Xing's mansion." Old madam said. Xiao Wanru nodded slightly but did not say anything. Of course, what old madam wanted to say was more than these. She was just living here temporarily now and would go to Yuhui Nunnery in a few days. It is indeed a great filial piety for you to go to Yuhui Nunnery to observe mourning for your parents for 3 years. But after 3 years, you have to go back to Duke Xing's mansion. No matter how powerful Great Elder Princess is, this matter cannot be discussed. Old madam said coldly. Thinking of how Great Elder Princess suppressed her in front of Empress Dowager just now, she felt sullen in her heart. "It's all up to you, old madam," Xiao Wanru said softly in a low voice. "It's great that you can understand this. No matter what, you are a miss of Duke Xing's mansion and the only daughter of my eldest brother. I will not treat you badly. As for your marriage, it is still too early to talk about it now. It will be a little late to talk about it 3 years later. But there is no other way. You can't talk about marriage during the mourning period." Speaking of this, old madam was also very depressed. Just in front of Empress Dowager, Rui and Great Elder Princess actually snatched the right to talk about the engagement with her. She was Xiao Wanru's biological grandmother, but in the end, she failed to snatch it from Rui and Great Elder Princess and let her have some right to talk about it. It was not easy for Xiao Wanru to answer. She just lowered her head and pretended to be obedient. She gently twisted the handkerchief in her hand and then loosened it. She knew that old madam did not want her to answer. Of course, she came to inform her. Sure enough, old madam paused for a moment and said, "Have you been engaged before? If you have been engaged, you can wait a few years and get married directly. I am still young and have not been engaged," Xiao Wanru said in a low voice. "It's good that you haven't been engaged. Your previous identity is not as good as your current identity, so the previous engagement is naturally not very good. I will ask your second aunt to choose a new one for you in the future. I heard that when you were in Jiangzhou, you even snatched a husband from the first miss of Qin's mansion. Such a thing is not allowed in the future. It's okay that you didn't know the rules in the past. If this happened in Duke Xing's mansion, a piece of white silk would have been cut off," old madam warned sternly. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. Since old madam said that she had a high status now and said that if she recognized the previous engagement, she would also recognize it. It was obvious that she wanted to marry her at will. Fortunately, she had hidden away for a few years. Otherwise, something terrible might happen at that time. As for old Madam of Duke Xing's mansion, she also felt that it was very ironic. In the last life, it was said that the dignified first Miss Xiao of Duke Xing's mansion had always done things dishonorably. She became the emperor's favorite concubine, but she also hooked up with Chu Luiyue. She really thought that no one could see it. It seemed that old Madam's so-called rules were aimed at her. Old Madam, you can send someone to investigate the matter in Jiangzhou Prefecture. Justice lies in people's hearts. I believe that everyone in Jiangzhou Prefecture can prove it for me. The slander in old Madam's words was too obvious. Xiao Wanru slowly raised her head and explained with indifferent eyes. You, how dare you speak to me like this? Old Madam flew into a rage. Old Madam, do you mean that you want me to admit this kind of thing that will damage my reputation? If so, what good will it do for Duke Xing's mansion? Xiao Wanru said unmoved. She could pretend to be docile, but she couldn't pour dirty water on her head. Old Madam stopped her carriage and poured all the dirty water on her head without saying anything. If she didn't say anything this time, there would be more dirty water in the future. The words that Old Madam disliked her had already been spread out. Old Madam could not go too far. Moreover, she had the support of her maternal grandma. Old Madam was so angry that her face changed greatly after hearing Xiao Wanru's words. Are you going to contradict me? I don't dare. I just want to tell the truth. Even if this matter is brought to the Empress Dowager, I will ask the Empress Dowager to investigate it. Xiao Wanru said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. You, well, you have grown up and I can't control you anymore, right? Old Madam reached out to Xiao Wanru and said angrily. Old Madam, please calm down. Will you be happy and not angry if I admit this kind of dirty thing? Xiao Wanru tilted her head innocently and said seriously. Her words almost made Old Madam want to vomit blood. Even if she had such an idea, she would not really say it. Old Madam, please calm down. The fifth miss is just explaining what happened in Jiangzhou. She is afraid that you will misunderstand her. Don't worry. It seems that this matter has nothing to do with the fifth Mississippi. It is not what you heard outside. It is good that it is not like that. You should be happy. Nanny Yu came out to smooth things over and said with a smile. She said it as if Old Madam really cared about Xiao Wanru. Chapter 464. I believe you for the time being. Then tell me what happened last night. How could such a mess happen? Duke Xing's mansion has always had a good reputation for so many years. Why did such a thing happen on the day you recognized it? Old Madam suppressed her anger and asked in a deep voice with a straight face. Xiao Wanru was so angry that she almost laughed. How partial she was to think that she was the one who caused the trouble last night. Everyone could see clearly that someone wanted to frame her. Old Madam thought that she had caused trouble and ruined the reputation of Duke Xing's mansion for so many years. Old Madam, please find out the truth and seek justice for Wanru. Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and looked at Old Madam without avoiding her eyes. Who doesn't want Wanru to return to the family? Who has such a great hatred against Wanru and wants to kill Wanru? Who can come and go freely in Duke Xing's mansion and plot against me? Xiao Wanru said slowly. Her watery eyes were as clear as water. She looked straight at Old Madam as if she could see through people's hearts. How dare you? Old Madam was so angry that her face turned livid and her hands trembled. Old Madam, don't be angry. Don't be angry. Be careful of your health. Nanny Yu was shocked when she saw this. She hurriedly reached out to pat her on the back a few times to help her recover. She gently blamed Xiao Wanru and said, Fifth Miss, how can you talk to Old Madam like this? Old Madam is doing this for your own good. She wants to tell you something important. For my own good, she wants me to bear all the responsibility this time. Or do I have to say that I plotted against myself, that I was the one who thought that way because my mind was not clear? Xiao Wanru said unhurriedly. Her words made Nanny Yu speechless. She knew old madam's mind very well. Old madam stopped them today for this reason. She did want the fifth miss to bear part of the responsibility. In this way, it would be easier for Duke Xing's mansion to explain and they wouldn't have to bear too much responsibility. However, after hearing Xiao Wanru's words, not to mention Nanny Yu, even old madam couldn't say anything. He patted the wall of the carriage repeatedly and said angrily, "Okay, okay. She has the protection of Great Elder Princess. Since she looks down on Duke Xing's mansion, let her do whatever she wants. Let's go." Was he trying to chase her away because they didn't get along? Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed deeply to old madam. Then she helped Yujie get out of the carriage under old madam's incredulous gaze. She bowed respectfully to the carriage and said, "Old madam, Wanru takes her leave." "Go, go." Old madam in the carriage said angrily. Xiao Wanru naturally turned around and went to the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion, and then turned into Great Elder Princess mansion. Old madam, don't be angry. You have to take care of yourself." Looking at old madam's pale face, Nanny Yu urged her anxiously. Look at her, look at her. She has the same temper as her mother. She's so annoying. She has no respect for her elders. Not only does she talk back to her elders, she even dares to show me that attitude. She's really amazing. The mother and daughter are the same, they are not good people. Old madam scolded. Old madam, don't be angry. We are in front of Great Elder Princess Mansion. Nanny Yu was anxious. Old madam's voice was a little loud. Since they were near the roadside, many people might have heard it. Someone had said that old madam of Duke Xing's mansion didn't like this newly recognized granddaughter and secretly plotted against her. Now old madam's attitude was more and more gossipy. Old madam also knew that it was not appropriate to say this at this time, but she felt very uncomfortable because her anger had accumulated in her chest. Let's go back to the mansion first. Old madam exhaled heavily, calmed down slowly, and then said coldly. Seeing that old madam finally calmed down, Nanny Yu breathed a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that old madam's old illness would relapse. If something really happened, she, as a servant, couldn't bear it. She suddenly remembered that when old madam had an accident before, it was Fifth Miss who helped her. For a moment, she didn't know what to say and could only sigh in her heart. After all, old madam and Fifth Miss were not destined to be grandmother and granddaughter. She ordered the carriage to turn back to Duke Xing's mansion. It was quiet in the carriage. After a long while, old madam asked coldly, "What do you think we should do about it?" She also calmed down at this time and frowned. She couldn't be so angry without an explanation. Now even the Empress Dowager Queen knew it. We can only investigate it carefully. Nanny Yu persuaded vaguely. Old madam, you are old. Let madam investigate it. Madam has always been capable and will find out a conclusion. Now we can only do this. Old madam patted the wall of the carriage beside her resentfully and scolded, "If she can bear part of the responsibility, our whole Duke Xing's mansion won't be pushed to the teeth of the storm." She didn't grow up in Duke Xing's mansion. It seems that she is selfish like her. Yes, old madam is right. Old madam will teach her slowly in the future. Nanny Yu said with a flattering smile. Teach? How? I want to leave her alone and then teach her. Look, such a thing happened. She is really a troublemaker. Our Duke Xing's mansion has been peaceful and well-behaved for so many years and has a good reputation. Look at how much the reputation of the whole Duke Xing's mansion has fallen after she came back for only one day. Old madam said angrily. After going back, ask madam to come to me once and find a few people to take the responsibility. If one person can't do it, ask two people to take the responsibility. Just say it is a coincidence, old madam said again. Don't worry, old madam. I will ask madam to come here immediately after I go back. It was easy to answer this question. Nanny Yu hurriedly answered and sighed secretly. In fact, she sympathized with the fifth miss, but she had no choice. After all, she was just a servant. Even if she wanted to speak up for the fifth miss, she didn't dare to. Xiao Wanru originally wanted to go to the Yuhui nunnery early the next morning, but Rui, and great elder princess, didn't allow it. She said that she needed to prepare some things for her and contact the abbess of the Yuhui nunnery to prepare a courtyard. These things couldn't be done in a hurry. She would live in the nunnery for 3 years. The courtyard of the Yuhui nunnery had to be prepared, and great elder princess had to send someone to have a look. Although it was a quiet practice, it was not an ascetic monk. Some necessary things had to be redecorated. There were some misses from aristocratic families who practiced in the nunnery, such as Xiao Yenru, but there had never been one who stayed for 3 years. Girls only had such a short period of time in their prime. How could they be delayed for 3 years? Although it was a little early for Xiao Wanru to get engaged at her age, it would be best for her to get engaged after a year or two, and then to become an adult after 2 or 3 years. But now Xiao Wanru was going to enter the nunnery to observe mourning. After feeling distressed, great elder princess scolded old madam of Duke Xing's mansion for being partial. After that, she asked Xiao Wanru to stay for a few more days. She asked someone to get everything ready in these days, and then let Xiao Wanru go to the Yuhui nunnery with ease. The time was set after the 15th of the first lunar month. Great elder princess finally recognized her granddaughter, but she was forced to enter the nunnery. Great elder princess felt distressed and angry, but she also knew that this was the best way. For her granddaughter, Duke Xing's mansion was a place of tigers and wolves, so it was best for her to leave. There was another thing that great elder princess was very concerned about. After old madam of Duke Xing's mansion left, the Empress Dowager also told her that the jade pendant she gave Xiao Wanru just now was the jade pendant of the future Princess Chen. That was to say, she temporarily engaged Xiao Wanru for Chu Luchen, but didn't announce it at the moment. Great elder princess also wanted to marry Chu Luchen. Great elder princess had mixed feelings about the Empress Dowager's words. She liked Chu Luchen very much. It could be said that Chu Luchen had made a lot of efforts secretly to recognize her granddaughter this time. But thinking of Chu Liuchen's health, great elder princess felt sad. How many years could his health last? At that time, wouldn't her granddaughter become a widow? Fortunately, the Empress Dowager also said that if Chu Luchen really couldn't survive, their relationship would not be made public. In this way, Xiao Wanru could have a future. But when Chu Luchen was well, Xiao Wanru was engaged to Chu Luchen. This matter had to be settled first. It seemed that this could only be settled in this way. At this time, great elder princess didn't even know whether she hoped that something bad would happen to Chu Luchen or that he would always be well. The most important question was, could he get better? Because of her worry, Rui, and great elder princess specially went to Prince Chen's mansion to check Chu Liuchen's complexion under the pretext of seeing his condition. When he went back yesterday, he went back lying down. At the thought of this, great elder princess felt worried. She had a hard life, so did her daughter. But she couldn't let her granddaughter, who had just been recognized, also have a hard life. Chu Luchen met Rui and great elder princess in the study. Seeing great elder princess come in, he stood up and bowed respectfully, and then asked great elder princess to take a seat. "How is your body?" Great elder princess didn't say much. She put down the teacup in her hand and asked with a frown. "I'm fine now. I'm slowly recuperating." Chu Luchen answered gently, and his expression and behavior were very peaceful. "Haven't you been recuperating before, but it didn't work?" Great elder princess knew that this was a little hurtful, but thinking of her poor granddaughter, she had to ask. Before, there was only Dr. Qi to recuperate, and now there is Mingqiu Nun, which happens to make up for the part that Dr. Qi is not good at. Xiao Xuanzi explained with a smile. Great elder princess's heart skipped a beat. She stared at Chu Luchen and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Will you get better?" "Grandaunt, don't worry. I will get better." Chu Luchen smiled leisurely, looking elegant and handsome. Why did you faint yesterday? Great Elder Princess's eyes narrowed into a sharp point, and her hands trembled slightly. She was a little excited. When I entered the palace in the morning, I deliberately didn't take any medicine. It happens that the medicine can be changed. Chu Luchen said slowly, as if he had already guessed Great Elder Princess's question. Will you get better? Great Elder Princess repeated the question, and her heart was in her throat. I heard that you have always given up on yourself. Even immortals couldn't save a patient who wanted to die. Chapter 465. Xiao Wanru knew that Great Elder Princess went to Prince Chen's mansion, but she didn't know what Great Elder Princess said to Chu Luchen. She only knew that Great Elder Princess left worriedly, but when she came back, she was calm and smiled more. She asked about Chu Luchen's illness indirectly. Knowing that he was now taking medicine and seemed to be in a good mood, she was relieved. After that, she went back to her courtyard to prepare for going to the Yuhui nunnery. Shui Rulan accompanied Madame Dowager here once and moved all the things that Xiao Wanru had brought to the capital city before. Shui Rulan was very happy that Xiao Wanru could return to her clan, but she was worried about Xiao Wanru. She heard that everyone in Duke Xing's mansion didn't like Xiao Wanru. Thinking that Xiao Wanru would meet such relatives who were not close to her after she returned to her clan and was even forced to enter the nunnery, Shui Rulan felt sad and cried in Xiao Wanru's yard for a while. In the end, he was finally persuaded. Madame Dowager looked much stronger. She just asked about Xiao Wanru's health and her future plans with concern. Then she sighed and hesitated to say something. Grandma, don't worry. I will take good care of myself. Besides, the Yuhui nunnery is not like other nunneries. I will be fine. If you miss me, you can come to see me at any time. Xiao Wanru comforted her with a smile. Even though she had no blood relationship with old Madame Qin, in her heart, old Madame Qin, who loved her dearly, was still her biological grandmother. As for the other one, she didn't know how to address her, so she often called her old Madame. Obviously, the other one also had feelings for Xiao Wanru and thought it was good to call her old Madame. Child, your identity is different now. I can't come to see you at any time. Old Madame Qin sighed and reached out to touch Xiao Wanru's head. Shui Rulan wiped her tears and said with a forced smile, Mother, don't be sad. Great Elder Princess will protect Wanru. Yes, Grandma, I'll be fine. Grandma will protect me. Xiao Wanru reached out to shake old Madame Qin's hand and said coquettishly as usual. Looking at the obedient little girl in front of her, whose white and tender face was full of admiration, old Madame Qin's eyes turned red. She was really reluctant to hand over the little girl she had raised for so many years. She really wanted to support her for the rest of her life. Grandma, don't be sad. I'm still your granddaughter. Even if I have other relatives, Grandma and Mother. Aunt Shui are still my relatives. Xiao Wanru paused for a moment and changed the way she addressed old Madame Qin. It didn't matter if she continued to call old Madame Qin by her original title. Speaking of which, old Madame Qin did raise her. Without old Madame Qin's protection, she could not have survived under Madame D's hands for so many years. But Shui Rulan couldn't do it. Duke Xing's mansion and Great Elder Princess would not agree to it. Good boy, as long as you do well in the future. Old Madame Qin turned sideways, wiped her tears a little, and then turned around and smiled again. Grandma, I'll write a prescription later. You can go back and adjust it for a while. Your old illness will be cured slowly. Seeing that old Madame Qin was still sad, Xiao Wanru changed the topic and said with a smile. She had felt old Madame Qin's pulse just now and found that she was much better than before. I'm fine. You can observe filial piety in the nunnery. Your father and mother are also pitiful. The sons of an aristocratic family have fallen into such a situation. You should indeed observe filial piety for them. Old Madame Qin sighed. How could she not understand the temperament of the little girl she raised? Mother, Wanru is fine. Don't worry. Next time you miss Wanru, I'll go to Yuhui Nunnery with you. Shui Rulan also comforted old Madam Qin. You'd better not go out in your current condition. Looking at Shui Rulan's bulging belly, old Madam Qin said with an increasingly gentle face. Aunt Shui, stay at home and don't go anywhere. Don't interfere in the matter of Qin Yuru marrying into Duke Yong's mansion. Let Father General Qin deal with it. If it's not done well, both inside and outside will be in trouble. Xiao Wanru also reminded her worriedly. It's indeed inconvenient for me to interfere in Yuru's matter. But her mother is like this now. If I don't interfere, it will be a mess. Shui Rulan said with a headache. She didn't want to interfere in Qin Yuru's marriage at all. But in the current situation, she had to interfere. Qin Huayong was a man, and there were always many things he couldn't take care of. Let General Qin decide everything. Aunt Shui will only do some things that have been decided. After that, I will let General Qin have a look. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and reminded Shui Rulan. She glanced at Shui Rulan's belly. With this child, Shui Rulan would have someone to rely on in the future. As for whether Qin Huayong was partial and wanted to give Qin Yuru more dowry, Xiao Wanru didn't think it was a big deal. Even if Qin Yuru emptied the entire general's mansion, she could slowly save up the dowry in the future. Shui Rulan had always been obedient to Xiao Wanru. Hearing Xiao Wanru's words, she nodded repeatedly and kept it in mind. After Xiao Wanru accompanied old Madam Qin and Shui Rulan for lunch, old Madam Qin left with Shui Rulan. Before leaving, Shui Rulan secretly pulled Xiao Wanru aside and asked her about the lady surnamed Lu, the wife of Qian Yukai, the first young master Qian, who was trapped in the backyard. After being trapped for so long, she seemed to be much smarter recently. According to Xiao Wanru's instructions, she asked the two old maids guarding her to gossip about Qian Yukai outside from time to time. At first, the lady surnamed Lu cursed angrily, but now she listened obediently without getting angry, as if she were talking about someone else's family. Xiao Wanru asked Shui Rulan to lock her up for a while and let her out after the results were released. What would happen after that had nothing to do with her. Qin Huayong locked her up, and he had to agree to let her out. Shui Rulan would not show her face. It was the old maids who gossiped. It could be said that the whole thing had nothing to do with Shui Rulan. However, this also shocked Qian Yukai and the lady surnamed Lu so that they did not dare to talk casually in the future. If they really annoyed the Qin's mansion, the two of them would not be strong enough. If they could let them go today, they could also make trouble for them in the future. After suffering a loss, the lady surnamed Lu would not be so stupid to stand in the way. Now she wanted to deal with Qian Yukai and her sister, so she did not dare to provoke Shui Rulan again. In the next few days, she packed up her things almost every day. Then she watched the carriage take away the packed things and continued to pack up. She heard that the courtyard of the Yuhui Nunnery had been renovated. Nanny Gao had gone to see it in person and said that the place was very quiet and safe, so that Great Elder Princess could rest assured. She even whispered a few words to Great Elder Princess, who nodded repeatedly and approved of that place. In addition to packing up, she spent the rest of the time with Great Elder Princess and Hao. Although the grandmother and the grandchildren lived a simple but warm and happy life. The night of the 15th day of the first lunar month was very lively, but Xiao Wanru did not go out. Although she also wanted to see what the first 15th day of the first lunar month in the capital was like, it was not convenient for her to go out in her current condition. She could only stay in Great Elder Princess's mansion. Fortunately, Great Elder Princess also thought that the two little ones were both young, so she specially asked someone to decorate the whole Great Elder Princess's mansion. There were all kinds of lanterns lit everywhere in the garden, which were beautiful and bright. Hao was so happy that he almost went crazy. He ran around with Xiao Wanru to guess riddles and pick up the lanterns by the way. It was not until the middle of the night that Great Elder Princess ordered him to go back to rest. Meanwhile, He asked a few servants to hold the spoils he had just guessed and shouted, "Sister, you must come to see how, tomorrow." Xiao Wanru's heart softened. After repeatedly agreeing, she coaxed him to go back. Early the next morning, Xiao Wanru said goodbye to Great Elder Princess and went to the door. An ordinary carriage took the two servant girls, Yu Jie and Chu Lu, to the Yuhui nunnery. When she left, Xiao Yuanhao hadn't gotten up yet. He was still sleeping because he had made so much noise last night. Great Elder Princess watched her granddaughter leave alone and couldn't stop crying. At that time, it was her daughter who was forced to leave, and now it was her granddaughter who was forced to leave. After being persuaded to stop, she freshened up and went to Duke Xing's mansion with Nanny Gao in the carriage. She couldn't get rid of this depression. Madame of Duke Xing received Rui, and Great Elder Princess, and led her to old Madame's courtyard. Madame of Duke Xing has always been smart. You should have found out that Zhuozhuo was set on fire, right? Rui and Great Elder Princess asked as she walked in. This matter has basically been found out. It was caused by the two servant girls who served the fifth miss at that time. Now they are still being interrogated. Madame of Duke Xing said with a flattering smile. Servant girls? Could it be that the two servant girls came to your mansion because they were jealous of Zhuozhuo? Could it be that they wanted to kill Zhuozhuo at the cost of their lives? Rui and Great Elder Princess sneered and squinted at Madame of Duke Xing. Great Elder Princess, you must be joking. Madame of Duke Xing said dryly, but she was trembling in her heart. Although Rui and Great Elder Princess didn't guess it 100%, it was the general meaning. Now she had to explain it. One of the two servant girls is the daughter of the old maid who guards the warehouse, and the other is a servant girl who has just served the 5th Mississippi. The cause was that the servant girl brought by the 5th Miss scolded the servant girl, and the servant girl wanted to scare the servant girl of the 5th Mississippi. I didn't expect that such a big thing would happen by chance. By chance? Great Elder Princess stopped and looked sharply at Madame of Duke Xing. By chance. The servant girl didn't know that the purified kerosene was so powerful. She had a good relationship with the daughter of the old maid who guards the warehouse, so she specially asked for some. But she didn't know that she would cause such a terrible trouble. Madame of Duke Xing said with a flattering smile. Your mansion is going to take two servant girls to solve the problem. Great Elder Princess sneered and walked inside again. Seeing that Great Elder Princess just said this and didn't ask any more questions, Madame of Duke Xing breathed a sigh of relief and felt complacent in her heart. If she insisted that this was done by a servant, it would be difficult for Great Elder Princess to force her to admit the crime. But the next moment, Great Elder Princess's face turned livid. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.